let's get to Sanders says rallies are meant to empower voters to not sit idly by. And we have the NPR 37-minute listen. Young male voters shift right. Can the left compete in the battle for the bros? Have you heard of China's greening their deserts? Really cool. Yes, I have. I have been following. I know everything that's going on. I know all the Chinese tech. Whether it be Chongqing videos about you go underground into the tunnels and then all of a sudden you come out of the tunnels and like boom, it's like, oh my God, you're still on a mountain. Whether it be that, whether it be the greenification of the desert tech. I'm following the Chinese tech, dude. That the bad empanada video pissed me off so bad I had to turn it off. He mischaracterizes you so badly. Which one? The one where he says Zionists use go to Gaza as a new death threat? Because I don't think that's... Is he mischaracterizing me in this one? Maybe. He's got smoke for everybody. He's got smoke for me too. It's all good. I don't really care. You know, more power to him. He's a crazy man. We're gonna have disagreements. It's all right. Chatter is overreacting. It's all good. There's no reason to overreact on people that people that have disagreements with me. And there's also a lot of people who disagree with me recently. There's a lot of people who disagree with me recently about what I've been up to, you know, what I've been up to with like AOC and Bernard Sanders and what I've been trying to do. But let's get started.
I want you to look at every level of office around you and support Democrats.
Bro, did you have a few drinks last night? No, man, I'm sick. Oh my God, I'm a human being, Chad.
Who actually fight, because those are the ones that can win against Republicans.
He doesn't really mischaracterize. He more so just says it was silly of you to say you want to go to Gaza at all. I don't think it's silly of me to want to go. And I would have never even brought it up if it wasn't initially suggested to me by journalists that are literally there. What the fuck are you guys talking about? It was like I didn't come up with it on my own. I can't believe this like took a mind of its own. Like the story turned into something entirely separate in and of itself. And then people started making jokes about it too, like as though it's like a funny fucking humorous thing. You know, I didn't come up with this on my own and decide to do it on my own. It's so funny though, because like people don't understand. There's a reason why Western journalists are not going to fucking Gaza right now. Like, why have they not gone to, even before Israel started bombing and killing as many children as they possibly can, like massive amounts of child murder that Israel has been engaging in for the past couple of days. Like even during the ceasefire, Western journalists did not go to Gaza, and there's a reason why. The only Western journalists that were allowed to go were able to fly in from Jordan and only film a very specific part of the humanitarian aid flying in from Jordan inside of the Gaza Strip. Like, that's it. And they still had military censors that would go through their footage. That's not real journalism. That's bullshit, right? And there's got to be a reason for that, right? I know, nephew, collab with assignment. We're probably not going to look at that right now.
I would not be telling you the truth if I didn't tell you that within the Democratic Party, there are billionaires who have undue influence. Democrats have turned their backs on the working class of this country.
That was Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez drawing more than 30,000 supporters in Denver on Friday. I was there and spoke with Senator Sanders after the rally about whether the Democratic Party can do anything to slow President Trump's agenda.
Bernie is back.
Hey, Mr. Trump, people fought and died to create a democratic society. You're not going to take it away from us.
I mean, he is.
83-year-old independent Senator Bernie Sanders is drawing crowds
like
even bigger than he did as a presidential candidate.
Feeling the burn?
Yeah.
For the past month, Sanders has taken his fight against President Donald Trump on the road. He's billing it the Fighting Oligarchy Tour.
We will not allow America to become an oligarchy.
In Denver, the anti-Trump sentiment was strong.
Oh, I think it's a disaster. And he talks about he has a mandate. He never had a mandate.
but so was the frustration with Democrats.
How's the Democratic Party doing challenging this?
They got to be a little tougher.
Quit being a bunch of doormats. It feels like we're left stranded when everything.
Tour's Western swing, Sanders was joined by New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
He has handed the keys of the federal government to Elon Musk and is selling off our country for parts to the richest people on the planet.
More than 30,000 people showed up for their joint appearance in Denver.
Look, as you know, when you run for president, you do a lot of rallies, and we've done a lot of big rallies. 32,000 people here is by far the largest rally I have ever done, and nobody's running for office. That tells you something.
So what are you trying to accomplish with this tour?
I'm trying to make it clear to the people throughout the world and throughout our own country that the American people are not going to sit idly by and allow Trump establish an oligarchic form of government where Musk and other billionaires are running our government. And we're not going to sit back and allow him to form an authoritarian form of society undermining the Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and undoing what the founding fathers of this country did in the 1790s, separation of powers, making sure that no one person had an extraordinary amount of power. And that is precisely what Trump is trying to do. He wants it all. He doesn't want Congress. He doesn't want the media. He doesn't want the judiciary. He wants all of the power. We cannot allow him to have that.
Well, I hear you telling people out there, fight back. What do you mean, though? How do they fight back?
Well, it's the question. We're working on it right now. But I think, first of all, coming here and showing the world that.
I think Bernie Sanders especially, I wouldn't even say this about AOC, but Bernie Sanders especially should be bolder and more courageous and not shy away from, saying the S word a little bit. I like this is common sense, this is common sense rhetoric. But like the stuff that like AOC's team is writing for her in terms of my opinions are not ones that are extreme or radical. It's not in the Communist Manifesto. I have these opinions because I care about like workers or whatever. Like you don't have to shit on like. You don't have to run around and be like, I'm a card carrying communist. I'm a Maoist third worldist or whatever. That's not the expectation, right? But there's no reason to present yourself as like anti-communist because it falls back into the same framework. I say this about Democrats across the board, for the record, not just AOC, even though it's worse when it's someone like AOC who's supposed to be like a person who ran on the Democratic Socialist ticket, right? DSA. When I don't even think Nancy Pelosi should be coming out and being like, I'm not a socialist, I'm not a communist, fuck communism, fuck socialism. I think that's a self-goal. Like, that's a self-own. And the reason for why I think that is because Republicans use this as a rhetorical tool to disparage you regardless. Whether you say you're for socialism or against socialism, they say socialism bad. You repeating socialism bad as a tactic is not going to cause people to look at you and go, okay, well, they're saying they're not socialists. Now I like them. They just simply still think you're a socialist. Like half the country still thinks you're a socialist and that it's a bad thing, right? It was ironically Pete Buttigieg that said one of my favorite things about this a very long time ago, I think when everyone was like trying to present themselves as much more radical, where he said, what was it? What did he say? He said something along the lines of like, Republicans call us a socialist. They, whether or not we are advocating for socialist policies or not advocating for social policies, I don't care about this distinction. I just want to do right by the working class. Something along those lines, he said. And there is no reason to adopt conservative and reactionary framework that implies that socialism is a bad thing or communism is a bad thing across the board, especially because...
Get out there.
Yeah. Tim Walz also said this as well. Tim Walz said something similar as well. So, no. Pete Buttigieg said that back in I remember very clearly Pete Buttigieg saying something similar to what Tim Walz has said as well. Trust me. Yeah, here. GOP will call us crazy socialists no matter what our policies are. Yep.
Time to stop worrying about what the Republicans will say. Look, if it's true that if we embrace...
I mean, he is a very skilled orator. His policies are awful. And I think he's a demon. I think he's a neoliberal demon in general. But like, as a skilled orator whose father is like the formative guy who translated all of Gramsci's works as a Marxist, I guess he like accidentally figured a couple things out. But
a far left agenda, they're going to say we're a bunch of crazy socialists. If we embrace a conservative agenda, you know what they're going to do? They're going to say we're a bunch of crazy socialists. So let's just stand up for the right policy, go out there and defend it. That's the policy I'm putting forward.
Now, ironically, he wasn't putting up any policies that were defensible, but regardless, that it's just like, it does not matter. It does not matter what Republicans say. They call Jeff Bezos a socialist, man. You're so stupid if you think that like Republicans are going to be honest and stop using socialism as a pejorative. Trump uses Palestinian as a pejorative.
Get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Yep. Great way to frame it. Great way to frame it. Tim Walz, my goat. So I think it's a mistake. My expectation is not for AOC to run around with the little red book attached at the hip, right? That's not my expectation at all. However, my expectation absolutely is that you don't adopt the framework of the right. Never adopt the framework of the right. Never adopt your enemy's frame of reference. No. They do not live in this plane of existence. They do not live on the same planet as us. They have created their own version of events for virtually everything. I find it very silly that these guys who are increasingly more manic, increasingly more insane, are able to dominate discourse in a very aggressive manner. Yeah, Summer Lee said that, and AOC agreed with Summer Lee back then, you know? They're going to call you socialist anyway. There's no reason. There's no reason to like reject socialism. It's just so stupid. It's so dumb. It's so silly. Don't do it. I don't think you should ever do it. You should never concede on your opposition's framework, especially when your opposition is the Republican Party, especially when your opposition is the modern Republican Party that basically makes everything up. Okay? They make everything up anyway. There is no reason to go, hey, gotta hand it to those guys. They made this shit up so good that a lot of people believe it now. You know? Yeah, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And that is the genuine issue with the modern Democratic Party, which is that they are not identifiable. There are no singular policies. There's no tangible policy association with the party. There's nothing you can point to. Nothing at all. And that's a real issue. And that actually presents a unique weakness that the Republicans exploit all the time. That's why they can just be like, these guys, they only care about giving Guatemalan migrants bottom surgery in prisons or whatever, right? It's like shit that the Trump administration also did. Like, who cares? It's not like a big part of not really breaking the bank, right? They can hyper focus on like random things and belittle you and bully you and make you stand for whatever issues they claim you stand for if you don't have any positive issues that you are presenting to the broader public. This feels like shadow boxing, though. No, this is a minor note that I heard from AOC in her speech at the Nevada rally, where she said this line that now she's using in her emails as well, which is like, my opinions are not extremist radical opinions. They're not. I didn't get them from the Communist Manifesto. Implying that the Communist Manifesto is like a radical extremist piece of work. It's actually because I care about labor, and I get what she's trying to do there, right? Like, I understand what she's trying to do. She's trying to say, like, these are common sense opinions, but the best way to do that is not by disparaging like the Communist Manifesto or socialism in general, right? Like, disappointed to learn today AOC's email list that reading the Communist Manifesto makes me extremist. Fox News and the right wing would have you believe that my American values are something out of the Communist Manifesto, but I don't believe in healthcare, labor, and human dignity because I'm an extremist. I believe these things because I was a waitress, which is like, I think that line without the Communist Manifesto is fantastic. I don't believe in healthcare, labor. Like, right wingers would have you believe that caring about healthcare, labor, and human dignity is an extremist value. But I don't believe in those things because I'm an extremist. I think they're the extremists. I believe those things because I was working class is like totally a solid way to reframe the conversation. You don't have to like associate Marxism and socialism with extremist values, especially because they will consistently keep using that as a weapon against definitely AOC and everybody else. They use it against Nancy Pelosi. They even use it against the likes of Jeff Bezos. So there is no reason to ever adopt that framework. I said this during the anti-Semitism and the protest debacle that was taking place, and Kamala Harris was like, anti-Semitism at these protests and these pro-Palestinian protests are completely unacceptable. You cannot burn an American flag. It's like, why are you taking ownership over that? Republicans never take ownership over actual radical issues, right? Like, actual insane shit that their base of support is actively on board with. They provide cover for actual Nazis. There is no moral equivalence between socialists and Nazis, okay? I'm not saying that. But if there's like supposedly this golden mean, this center of American politics, and you have Nazis on the one side and you have socialists on the other, which again, not a real moral equivalence here. There's no moral equivocation between, neo-Nazi sentiment and socialist sentiment, obviously. That's why I can openly say that I am a socialist, whereas Nazis can't really openly say that they're Nazis unless they're now on Twitter, and now they do say that they're Nazis, but even then they try to hide it sometimes. Basically, my point is there's never a reason to own what the right is claiming is what your fans are doing. There's no reason to do that if you are reaching a broader audience. There's no reason to take ownership over it and defend it even. Just don't even talk about it. Who cares? Deflect. You're a politician. You do it all the time. Politicians deflect expertly all the time when it comes to issues that will tangibly improve, materially improve the working class. They're so good at deflecting away from, hey, when are we going to get health care? Why can't you deflect away from this? Perhaps the reason why, and this is not for AOC, this is not my criticism for AOC at all, but the reason why someone like Kamala Harris or many others don't actually deflect away from that is because they agree. They don't fuck with socialism, and they also think that they should be the controlled opposition that stops any sort of more left populist movements from developing in this country. But if you are Bernie Sanders, or if you're AOC, if you're Summer Lee, if you are a member of the squad, you should never, ever in a million years stand in opposition to more radical elements within your base of support. That's part of the reason why I also stray away from routinely criticizing people to the left of me, right? Unless there's someone that is engaging in reactionary thought, like the MAGA communists or whatever, and even then I rarely talk about them. Despite the fact that they're up my asshole on a regular basis. The reason why I don't talk about them in general, the reason why I don't talk about people to the left of me in general, is because I see no value in criticizing them, because they're moving the needle in their own way in a direction that I think this country should head, right? Like, I'll make jokes about ultras, Marxist, Leninists, anarchists, and everyone that's ostensibly on the anti-capitalist side of things, but those are just like light ribbing. It's not, I don't have like a sincere reason to despise them or anything like that. I don't care. It's just like at most a nuisance. You know what I mean? You just advocate for solid policies that materially improve American working class, the lives of the American working class. That's what you need to do. Is that your way of apologizing to anarchists, or should they still be mad at you? Oh, shut up. I don't care about anarchists getting mad at me. There's plenty of you in here right now. And you keep coming back because I keep spitting that hot garbage you like, okay? Give me a goddamn break. It would be so simple to just reframe their argument as if being pro-labor is a Marxist position, then every service worker, electrician, factory worker, and nurse is a Marxist. People calling this a Marxist policy is trying to scare you, trying to hurt you. Yeah. One must ask the question why this is so scary. This is such a scary opinion. One must ask the question why. There's so many scary thoughts. Like the Communist Manifesto, the Communist Manifesto is a pamphlet, dude. It is like the easiest read of all time. It's a couple pages. Everyone should read it. You don't have to agree with it if you don't want to, but you should still read it and you should learn about it. Why are you so afraid? Like what? Ooh, scary. You're going to agree with it? Oh no.
And Americans are not going to sit back and take what Trump is doing is a good step forward. But obviously what we need to do is what neither political party is capable of doing right now. And that is develop a strong grassroots movement prepared to run candidates, prepared to stand up and question candidates, demand responsibility from their elected officials to stand with working families and not just the 1%.
I've been covering you for a long, long time. I've heard you railing against millionaires and billionaires for a long time.
Hey, guess what?
Is it different?
Turns out a few other...
You don't need to read the manifesto. There's better, smaller size reads. What are you talking about? The Communist Manifesto is the small size read. I'm not saying read Das Kapital. I'm saying read the Communist Manifesto. The Communist Manifesto is the bite-sized version. What is shorter than that? Sharing is caring? It will take you maximum half an hour if you're a slow reader. Like,
people are catching on to that, right? Yeah. I have been talking for many years about this country moving toward an oligarchy. And I think anybody who is not dumb, deaf, or blind is seeing precisely what is happening. Trump's inaugural, right behind him, 3 wealthiest guys in America. You know, Lincoln talked about a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Remember? Well, we got a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. That's what we have.
So we're about 60 days into the Trump era, the second Trump era. How would you...
So you're a reformist? Only policies will deliver change? No. I always maintain, and I've told everybody this over and over again, that if you want to instill class consciousness in a country that is incredibly reactionary, like the United States of America, you have to use the appropriate venues that you have. You have tools at your disposal. Okay? Obviously, social democracy, look to Europe, is not this infallible, perfect utopia, because it will inevitably crumble under the pressures that exist here in the United States of America as well. But go ahead, run around talking about how much of a how there's a need to build a vanguard party so we can violently overthrow the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie right now, and see how far you get with that. You know, my goal is I look at the current situation. I look at messaging. I look at the current material conditions, and I look at the attitudes that the American working class has. Many people here in this country have no understanding of their class position. They just don't get it at all. So I think, especially right now, the most significant thing to do is to get them to recognize their class position. That's what I focus my efforts on. And I think it's important for people to recognize that. And it's important for people to organize. So there is a network that isn't just the Democratic Party, a network that can apply pressure to at least one of the two parties in this duopoly, or maybe another party that you could create potentially down the line. But you need people power to back that. Let's
grade
continue.
The Democratic Party's response.
Well, I would take us back even 2 years before that, before Trump was elected, and saying that it saddens me that when the Democrats had control of the Senate, they did virtually nothing for working people. And I have to say that I'm a member of the Democratic caucus as an independent, so I'm not going to lie to you and tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
And since then, do I think the Democrats have been effective in rallying the American people in stopping Trump's movement toward oligarchy and authoritarianism? No, I don't.
Is there anything that you think Trump has done right?
Yeah, I mean, I think cracking down on fentanyl, making sure our borders are stronger. Look, nobody thinks that illegal immigration is appropriate. And I happen to think we need
This is the part that was not great.
comprehensive immigration reform. But I don't think that it's appropriate for people to be coming across the border illegally. So we've got to work now on comprehensive immigration reform. The idea that Trump has, I don't know what his...
Like, Bernie is supposed to be the guy that is like significantly to the left of the establishment Democrats. And this line right here is quite literally establishment Democrat line. That is like, that's towing the party line, you know? This is unironically the most libbed up thing you can hear from someone like Bernie, who is pro-immigration. Like his statement right here, for the record, is not, his statement right here is to try and say, no, we want to open up pathways of immigration so, you know, people aren't actually coming in illegally, that people don't have the need to come in illegally. But I think that that is the appropriate way to communicate this, rather than to say, yeah, nobody wants illegal migrants coming in. I hate them. Like, you know what I mean? This kind of stuff does matter, by the way, especially when your goal is to inspire people to you know, take matters in their own hands, to mobilize, to organize. They shouldn't be mobilizing and organizing on those boundaries, in my opinion, especially at a time when the current administration is doing Nazi concentration camp shit, right?
Latest emphasize, he wants to deport 20 million people who are in this country who are undocumented. Well, you do that, you destroy the entire country, because I got news for you. Trump's billionaire friends are not going to pick the crops in California that feed us. They're not going to work in meat packing houses. That's what undocumented people are doing. So we need a variety of programs, guest worker programs, but mostly comprehensive immigration reform.
But you know, illegal immigration, it exploded under Biden, and it had been high for times under Trump as well, but it exploded under Biden, and nothing was really done until his last...
The moment that you adopt, even marginally, the Republican framework on this matter, a liberal centrist media outlet will immediately hit you on that and go, it's exploding. And you say, yeah, it's not a bad thing that people want to come here. Let's examine why they want to come here. Part of it is because we've ruined their countries. If you don't want people to come here, nobody wants to leave their home. Nobody wants to leave their culture behind. Nobody wants to leave their families behind. They have to do that because we've ruined these countries. So we must examine why. Trump says he's a peaceful dove. What kind of peaceful dove activities has Donald Trump actually used? What kind of peaceful dove activities has Trump done? He claims to be an isolationist, for example. He's bombing Yemen. Every single president has bombed Yemen. Barack Obama bombed Yemen. Donald Trump bombed Yemen. Biden bombed Yemen. Now Trump is bombing Yemen again. How is that peaceful dove activity? He said he was going to figure out a deal for Ukraine and Russia day one. He said he was going to end the violence in Gaza day one. None of that has happened. Examine why people actually leave these countries if you don't want them to come to the United States of America. But having said that, there is no issue with people coming to the United States of America. We got plenty of space. We got plenty of jobs. There is no finite pool of labor. The real problem is not that there is a finite amount of jobs that are readily available, because when more people come in, you need more houses, you need more roads, you need more teachers, you need more doctors, you need more of everything, which means you need more jobs, right? It opens up more opportunities for the country to grow. As a matter of fact, that is how America has been such a dominant force on this planet and not run into the same issues that other countries have run into in terms of their birth rates, right? Here's the problem. The real issue is not that people are coming into this country and taking our jobs. The real issue is that people are coming into this country and not getting the proper documentation because they're desperate, and they're being exploited. And that is depressing wages for the US-born working class individuals. But the billionaire class loves that. And they know that the more they ham up the anti-immigration sentiment, hold on, doors open, the more that they say immigrants are stealing your jobs, the more likely it is that you never actually document them, because they don't want you. They don't want those immigrants to get the documentation, because if they don't have that documentation, they can keep making them work for pennies on the dollar. That's it. That's it. That's the real issue. These are not bad people. These are not villains. These are not violent criminals. These are everyday people just like you and me.
Last year in office when he was...
Yep, should have done much better, no argument.
So realistically, Republicans control the House, they've controlled the White House, they control the Senate. So what realistically can be done?
Well, for major pieces of legislation, you still need 60 votes in the Senate. And let's be clear, we have picked many of the spots that I've gone to in Wisconsin, in Iowa, in Michigan.
What do you expect from a country founded on slavery and genocide? Chatter, that's defeatist. I recognize that as well, but that's a defeatist attitude to have. It's not a productive one to have, right? When you're like, oh, America's just racist. It's like unfixable, unsolvable. Okay, so what do? Nothing? We just step aside? There's no reason to have that conversation other than to say, I told you so, I guess. It might feel good to be like, I was right, and I told you so, and I knew that this was the case. Okay. You know? But that's defeatist. You have to, like, America is an incredibly reactionary country. America is an incredibly violently anti-communist, anti-socialist country, right? And yet I still try to explain these positions through common sense and try to get people on board with a different way of seeing the world, regardless of the antagonism that people feel due to social conditioning. If I were to have your attitude and say, what are you going to do? People are never going to shake away their white supremacist attitudes. They're never going to shake away their reactionary, counter-revolutionary, anti-communist, anti-socialist, anti-Marxist opinions. Then I would not have been able to grow a community such as this one that is comprised almost entirely of individuals that for one reason or another actually had their minds changed. You just can't stop advocating for what you know is the truth.
We chose them carefully.
Yeah.
And those are because they have Republican congressmen who won by small margins. Right now, I don't know what the number is. I think if 2 or 3 Republicans out of 200 and whatever it is, 18 or whatever they got, choose not to support giving tax breaks to billionaires and cutting Medicaid and education, we can defeat this big supplemental bill, the beautiful bill that Trump wants to see passed. So right now, what we're trying to do is put pressure on those congressional districts, demand that Republican Congress people sit down and talk to their constituents and explain why they think it's a good idea to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% and cut veterans programs, cut Medicaid, cut Social Security, cut education.
You said that the passage of this bill, the continuing resolution, was a absolute failure of Democratic leadership. Who are you talking about?
Well, Schumer is the leader of the party, and it should not have happened, period. No question about it. But, you know, when we talk about Democratic leadership, we're talking about the Democratic Party in general. You know, so look, there's been nobody more critical of Chuck Schumer than I have been. And not just on this thing. But the bottom line is not just Chuck Schumer. It's not just Chuck Schumer. It is you got a Democratic Party in general that is dominated by billionaires, just as the Republican Party is, that is operates under the leadership of a bunch of inside the Beltway consultants, very well paid, who are way out of touch with the 32,000 people who are here today.
Ocasio-Cortez's criticism of Schumer has been harsher, fueling speculation she'll challenge him in the Democratic primary when he is up for re-election in 3 years. For his part, Sanders doesn't want to talk about whether or not Schumer should remain the
I'm speaking at an Indivisible rally today. Can I get a good luck? Good luck, chatter.
Democratic leader in the Senate. and he got irritated when I asked him about the possibility of AOC running, abruptly getting up to end the interview.
Okay, you're out there with AOC today. Do you see her as a...
Before you, I had the idea that many other Maghrebis have about Palestinians, as we tend to victim blame and say it is their fault. They should not have sold their land. But thanks to you, I know that even if they did sell the land, this does not give the right to Israel to bomb them. Also, they didn't. The amount of land, first of all, landlords own the land. Palestinians don't. And even if it's a Palestinian landlord that owned the land under the Ottoman rulership, the land that the early Zionists were able to purchase was 6% of the land. 6%. And it wasn't even like good land either. So the idea that like Israel actually by the books legally created its country is a lie.
Future of the progressive...
We have one of the untold stories of what's going on in current American politics is that in the House of Representatives, you have dozens and dozens of strong, smart, disciplined, hardworking young people in the Progressive Caucus. And you know, way back when I first came to the Congress, the House, I helped form the Progressive Caucus. We had 5 people in it at that time. Now they got close to 100. So you got a whole lot of good people. Alexandria is extraordinary. I am so impressed by her work in Congress and she inspires young people all over the country.
Would you like to see her join in the Senate?
Right now, we have, as I said, just a whole lot of people in the Congress. Okay, Jonathan, thanks.
Wait, I got one more. This is important.
Well, I asked you.
Okay.
You know, you want to do nonsense, do nonsense.
No.
I don't want to talk about inside the Beltway stuff. I got 32,000 people.
I was just asking you about AOC because she was out there with you.
No, fine, but I don't want to talk about this. What was the last question?
I was just going to ask you one more question about you. I mean, that's all. I was literally your last...
What is your question?
Well, I mean, it's easier.
Damn, what the hell?
I mean, I want to ask you about your future. This is the biggest crowd. You said you ran for president twice. This is the biggest crowd you've ever seen. Are we going to see you run again, or what's your future?
No, right now...
That's so fun. I didn't even realize he just got up from this interview. That's crazy.
I am very proud that the people of the state of Vermont sent me back to the Senate with 63% of the vote. Right now, I'm Vermont senator. That's what I do.
Yeah. The reason why he got mad is you're correct, Lightbender. My mom wants to know why he got upset during this interview. I told her, in my opinion, it's because he's trying to stay on message while they're more concerned about who the Democrat leader is. Kind of like how you cover a topic and a chatter comes about drama bait. Yeah. No. As a journalist, his job is to get like journalists and clip farmers operate in a similar capacity. By the way, speaking of clip farmers, oh my God, look at this. I'm getting botted again. Anyway, fantastic. Speaking of journalists and botting, so here's the way that journalists work is not dissimilar to like LSF clippers, right? His job there is to also get like a quotable moment. And right now there's a lot of inside Beltway drama with respect to Chuck Schumer. And obviously there's a lot of momentum behind the progressive populist wing of the Democrats with Bernie and AOC and the like. Right. And and there's a lot of anger and resentment towards Chuck Schumer. People are asking, will AOC actually thwart Chuck Schumer? Will run against Chuck Schumer and primary Chuck Schumer? That's the question that he's going for. If Bernie runs again for president, somehow wins in 2028, was it all worth it? No.
And I'm very happy.
Bernie should have had 2 terms by now. America would be in a radically different trajectory, but I also would be actively fighting against the Bernie administration as well, most likely, because he would probably do a lot of the same, not to the same degree, but like he probably would be doing a lot of aggro foreign policy shit as well. Here's Greg Kazar. Kazar pushes back against a Fox News host who claims that Republicans don't actually want to cut Social Security. There has been a little bit of disappointment from Kazar, I'll admit, because I really like him. I really like him a lot. And I was a little upset that he did not endorse Zoran. But, you know, we'll see. And I do think that, like, dude, with the Palestine stuff, it's just like it is. He didn't endorse Zoran. He endorsed the other. There's a New York mayoral race happening. He endorsed the other progressive person. And also, like, progressive Dems have to cut the shit with Palestine. They can't. They cannot. avoid the issue of Gaza. It is an incredibly important issue for the youth in this country, and it's just an incredibly important issue in general. It is like a major contradiction. It is a major, major contradiction. Israel's favorabilities are at an all-time low. Americans are frustrated on bipartisan lines. It does not make any sense that there are so many cowardly people within the Democratic Party, regardless of their, ostensibly progressive worldview, that just refuse to say anything meaningful about this. And it's such a slam dunk, just like it was a slam dunk for the election. Like, even if you're like even if you are a bloodless, cold, calculating politician that does not care about the morality, it is literally, it's right there for the picking. The administration is using the lack of interest that the Democratic leadership has in defense of people who are demonstrating against Israel to Ubisoft, Amazon Prime socialists out here standing Marxism, consumerism, corporatism, loser. Are you a Marxist? Chatter. Are you a real Marxist? Can you show us the way, big dog? Start streaming. Show us the honest way of doing things, you know? It's always people who are like, I think socialism is a death cult, that also say this is not real socialism. Suddy Steele. I'm an Amazon Marxist. Oh, nice, dude. Cool. Yeah. Marxism implies you cannot have job retention, because ultimately every company you work for is going to be, especially in the sector of entertainment and news media, virtually every company that you associate with or that you're a wage laborer for is going to be a fucking hyper exploitative company. You know, my alternative is Google if it's not Amazon. Those really annoying lip socks also say that. No, those are silly people. Most people that say stuff like that are just also diametrically opposed to my fucking worldview. They don't understand it. They're just repeating something that they heard from another person that doesn't understand this at all. There's no reason to ban that person, though. Maybe they'll stick around and develop a different worldview. Let's continue.
Paying taxes to improve your life, not to make.
Yeah, if you work, you are cooperating with a capitalist. I know. Yeah. Instead of being a fake Marxist that works for Amazon, what I should do instead is take all of my capital and work for myself by purchasing a bunch of apartment complexes. You know, that's what a real Marxist would do. Instead of being a 1099er, I should just, do my Sigma Greiset shit. Yeah, capitalism is voluntary. You can totally exist outside of capitalism.
Some billionaire buy their 10th jet.
To be fair, I don't think many of your Republican colleagues have any interest in touching Social Security, but I want to keep moving on here. Your colleague Ro Khanna.
But to be fair, President Trump and Elon Musk just announced that they are closing Social Security offices and going to ask seniors and people with disabilities to go check in person at Social Security offices that they've closed. And in rural areas or really suburban areas, that may be really hard to do. And then they'll call those Social Security recipients, quote, fraudsters, and cut off their benefits. That's what they've announced. And Commerce Secretary, who's a billionaire himself, just said on television, oh, if my grandma misses a Social Security check, I think he said my mother-in-law misses a Social Security check, she won't complain. Well,
but you're on the DOGE subcommittee, though, right? So
you should.
Where is it? All right, we're gonna get to Turkey in a second. Hold on. Which politician do you think is aligned with almost all your views? No one. Someone that was close to being aligned with most of my worldview would be Jeremy Corbyn. In the United States of America, there are a lot of issues that I still have with someone like Bernie Sanders, even though he is, I guess, the closest. And I still took issues with Corbyn as well because he was too soft. He was not. Please don't watch this guy. He endorsed Trump. Who did? Pat Empanada. Pat Empanada endorsed Trump. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, dumbass. Yeah, I mean, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are fairly close to my worldview as well. American political commentator is taking over the Turkish political. So this guy says, there are even American influencers or foreign influencers that are covering this issue, and there are Turkish influencers who are saying nothing out of fear. So just block them, the Turkish influencers, because they're being cowards. And don't be surprised if tomorrow or some other day their Instagrams are shut off, and they'll be the first to cry when that happens to them. But this is because Asmongold did a "What the fuck is happening in Turkey?" One of my favorite comments that I saw on my community from that video was Asmongold's community being like, "It's crazy how Hassan is not talking about this," you know? And it's so funny because, like, I have talked about this. Of course. I don't understand how people just, like, fantasize about this stuff. Fantasize about what I haven't done, you know? Where is it? Does anyone have the link? Yeah, there are. Is that why everyone was yelling at you not 5 minutes after covering it? Yeah. You have to talk about it while the Roach King is reacting to it, or else it didn't happen. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to get it across to people. Like, so many people unironically assume that, like, if they so many people just simply don't have object permanence any longer. Is a truly frustrating reality that we have to exist in, where people will just be like, if I didn't see it, it doesn't exist, you know? If I wasn't there when it happened, it didn't happen at all. And I don't know how to deal with that. Yeah. This is the thing I was talking about. You know, you'd think the most popular left-wing political streamer in the world who is also Turkish would be covering this, but from what I understand, he isn't. Like, what? Like, normally, I think back in the day, people would just be like, hey, you're wrong. Or let me just, like, search even a little bit. Like, let me look up, like, I don't know, Hasanabi, Turkey, okay? And Google that to see if he has actually talked about it. You know what I mean? 4 days ago, Turkey falls into chaos amid protests. Turkey is falling apart under Erdogan 20 hours ago. Like, you could have just easily Googled to see if I had extensively covered it, right? But people are so lazy and also simultaneously so unwilling to learn, like, basic things. I don't know what to say about it. Like, I genuinely don't know what to say about it. I like, anytime I mention that a comment, like, this is wrong, they just call me Hassan Dick Rider and fuck off. I know. There was a time and place when I think a lot of people would have made fun of, like, our grandparents for falling into Facebook memes and stuff, right? And now basically everyone behaves like that. It's very strange. Like, I don't expect people to watch everything that I'm doing. But if you're gonna make a statement like this, like, you could have just Googled it. It would have taken you 3 seconds. It would have taken you 3 seconds to figure out if this was correct or not. And if you're willing to not even entertain a quick Google search for something as stupid as this, okay, for something as dumb as this, as silly as this, then how many genuinely consequential things are you also completely oblivious to? Because, like, this is just about me. Who gives a fuck, right? Yeah, it's the meta is to be like, Hassan fucking sucks. And it's ultimately inconsequential. But I think there is a real problem with the way that people, I think there's a real problem, real issue with the way people approach the truth. Like, anyway. But yeah, I think people are hyping up Asmongold because they're, like, excited that someone in America with such a large platform is covering it, which, by the way, I think it is good. It is good that even if it's, like, coming from Asmongold, I don't know what his take is, but I assume because it's happening in Turkey, he doesn't like it. Because, like, the very same shit happening in America would lead Asmongold to say the American government should kill everyone, most likely. And that's not that far-fetched of me to assume, because similar starting positions, as someone who's very familiar with Erdogan, who lived under Erdogan's rule and who lived in the United States of America under Trump 1 and Trump 2, I see a lot of similarities, and he is defending a lot of the things that Trump is doing here in the United States of America. And I'm constantly warning people that this is exactly how you get to what is happening in Turkey right now. But ultimately, this is a good thing to get the word out about what the fuck's going on in Turkey. And I suspect that, Osman Gold, who would be an Erdogan supporter in Turkey, is probably not an Erdogan supporter. Is probably not an Erdogan supporter in America because it's he can be more honest about the brutal ways in which the Erdogan regime is suppressing political dissent.
Escalation.
Shit in Turkey's getting. This is a second video on it. Don't worry, guys. Hassan is gonna go back to his home country and fix it because he loves it so much. Wait, what? Why is that the top comment in this? We don't want them either. Please take him home. Now he's too busy playing AC Shadows to care about Turkey because Hassan has any power in that country, right? Blind hatred. Can't believe people have so much in them. Bros living rent free in your head. He might be from Turkey, but not Turkish. We do have groups, but they are not Turkish or a Turk. Going to be honest, we are the first nation to recognize Israel, and we work with Jews and have protected Jews for millenniums. But we also have Arabs, Kurds, Persians, and so on and so on. They say they are Turkish, but not a Turk. Let me give you an example. Turkey took 5 million Syrian Arabs. They say they're Turkish now, but they ain't Turkish. Do you see the difference? Turkish hogs have found the Osman Gold commentary. It's awesome. Hassan has no videos on this. He's busy fighting common sense. I don't know why I do what I do. There is, like, when I see stuff like this, it is kind of discouraging, where it's just like, it is kind of discouraging to see, how stupid everyone is. Like, I don't know what to say. It's just like, people are just operating on vibes. First of all, you don't have to be Turkish to care about this. Everyone should care about this. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Okay? The Turkish government getting away with this kind of political repression is terrifying for a country with like 90 million plus people, a country that has a lot of geopolitical significance in that region. And there's a lot of lessons that you can derive here in the United States of America, even if you are not aware of Turkey or Turkish politics. There is a lot of stuff that Erdogan has done over the course of the past 22 plus years and continues to do now that is also happening in the United States of America. Maybe not to the same severity, maybe not to the same degree, but there's a valuable lesson there that Americans can learn from. The Facebookification of YouTube and Twitter is crazy. Everywhere it is. If you want to be disappointed, look at Facebook misinfo. My dad thinks raw milk cures alcoholism, withdrawals, and autism. By now, he probably thinks it cures even more things because of Facebook. That's what I mean. It's just like, we are cooked. Anyway, here is İmamoğlu, the Istanbul mayor / governor, imprisoned and is pending a trial in Turkey.
Security was tight at an Istanbul court as a judge jailed city's mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, pending trial on graft charges. The ruling is likely to increase already high tensions in Turkey following the leading opposition figure's detention earlier this week. The court said it strongly suspected him of aiding an armed terrorist organization and that an investigation into that is ongoing.
Someone in the chat said they're comparing you to Osama bin Laden. Yeah, sounds familiar. Ay. Fucking morons, dude.
The decision will mean a mayor for Istanbul will now be elected from within its municipal council, where the opposition Republican People's Party, or CHP, has a majority.
The decision raises the possibility of the Istanbul municipality appointing a trustee, but the necessary objections will be made for the mayor to gain his freedom.
After the court ruling, İmamoğlu posted on X that he would never bow. His lawyers are expected to appeal. The mayor's detention provoked the country's biggest protest against the government of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in more than a decade, despite protests being banned. Many people believe the charges against the mayor are politically motivated.
They have clearly set a trap for İmamoğlu. Could a man like him be a terrorist, or even be associated with terrorism?
İmamoğlu is being treated unfairly. He is being held in custody unjustly. We are advocating for justice to be served in response to this.
Since taking the Istanbul mayoral seat in 2019, İmamoğlu has been widely regarded as President Erdogan's main political rival. The opposition CHP party held a nationwide preliminary vote on Sunday to nominate him as their main presidential candidate for the presidential elections in 2028. Changes made to the law in 2016 allow courts to appoint trustees to replace mayors facing terrorism charges. But with the judge ordering İmamoğlu jailed pending trial on corruption charges, the Istanbul Municipal Council, not the court.
Does Turkey have an independent judiciary? Fuck no. Or does Erdogan have control over the courts? Erdogan has control over everything.
Has the authority to elect a new mayor from within its own members. Sinem Köseoğlu, Al Jazeera, Istanbul.
Make sure.
Not a chance Erdogan steps down if he loses? Yes. He's not. This is why he's doing this. Because he doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to lose control over the power that he has. This is the reason why he's jailing İmamoğlu to begin with, because he is the most popular opposition figure and the most likely to unseat Erdogan after 22 plus years of domination.
Andy Hillier joins me on set. Hi, Andy. So protesters are gathering for a fifth day in Turkey today. Can you start by taking us through today's developments?
Yeah, there have been a lot of significant developments today. As you mentioned there, perhaps the most significant coming in the last few hours, Ekrem İmamoğlu suspended as mayor of Istanbul. That was after he was earlier this morning formally arrested and charged with corruption. He arrived at Silivri prison, far out, quite a distance out.
Chatters will recognize Silivri. He said it wrong. It's not Silivri. It's Silivri. Okay. Chatters might recognize that name because a very common joke from Turks in this community and just Turks in general is they'll say Silivri is cold. That is the prison that Erdogan most commonly, the Erdogan administration most commonly sends his political rivals to for a multitude of different reasons, many of which is fucking bullshit. So whenever I say something about Erdogan, Turkish chatters will chime in and say, Silivri is cold this time of the year.
Outside Istanbul just a few hours ago as well, as you can see in these pictures here. Now, he has posted his reaction to social media, and I can read for you now just one of the things he said. He said that he invited the nation to a responsible struggle for rights, adding that the struggle for rights was a matter for the future of the nation and for the nation's children. He also added, encouraging citizens to go out and vote today. I'll just tell you in a short while what he's referring to there. Either way, the situation as it stands is likely, if anything, to stoke and inflame tensions even further in Turkey. Now,
would I be able to travel back to Turkey if I wanted to? Chatter, come on. What do you fucking think? What are you talking about? My statements on Turkish politics are way more radical than what İmamoğlu is saying. What are you talking about, dude? Ask the Turks in the chat what you think. No. I've also written in the past and have directly been threatened by the Turkish government before.
İmamoğlu's party, the Republican
and that was when I was a much, much smaller political commentator.
Party, that is the main opposition party in Turkey, has gone ahead with this primary vote. It is, if anything, more an informal vote, set to confirm İmamoğlu as the party's contender in the 2020.
Also, who's going to save me? Is the Trump administration going to apply political pressure to Turkey? Me, an American citizen? Let's say I go back to Turkey. Let's say I get arrested. There's a million different charges that can be brought up, including my friendship with one Brace Belden, for example, who is for some weird reason on the terrorist watch list in Turkey. Okay? That's one of the many different reasons that I could get in trouble. He's just considered a terrorist. He's not. Anyway, could be any reason. It doesn't even have to be that. Do you truly think that the Trump administration would apply political pressure to the Turkish government to get me out of prison?
8th presidential election. He will certainly win that vote, but that vote certainly won't be recognized by Turkey's Supreme Electoral Council. Now, what the CHP, the Republican People's Party, has done is encourage members of the party and non-members of the party to participate. So the point here is that they want to turn this vote really into a kind of symbol for the opposition to show their opposition to President Erdogan. So we are going to see large crowds forming tonight for a fifth night outside Istanbul City Hall in Saraçhane.
So how do these protests, Andy, compare to the last big wave of anti-government demonstrations that we saw over 10 years ago in 2013?
Yeah, in 2013, of course, we saw the Gezi Park protests. These were protests against plans to build a mosque and a shopping mall on one of central Istanbul's only green spaces. I was actually there. I covered these protests. I remember when there was, the moment protesters formed a human chain across Taksim Square to symbolically protect the park moments before the occupation in that park was cleared by riot police. Now, that sparked days of rioting in Istanbul and other cities across Turkey. Of course, that protest, Gezi Park becoming a symbol of something bigger. The protests morphed into a demonstration against mass corruption and against authoritarianism. Now, since then, the slide towards authoritarianism in Turkey has become more pronounced. And what many demonstrators have been saying this time round, including even demonstrators here in Paris, who I spoke to yesterday, there was a small demonstration held by the opposition party, the CHP, here in Paris. They've been saying that this is, for them, shaping up to be a fight about the future of Turkish democracy, or at least in their eyes, what's left of Turkish democracy. President Erdogan hasn't, I think, hesitated to drive a wedge right through Turkish society in the last decade with his divisive rhetoric. You have two visions of Turkey, really. One embodied by Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the other embodied by Ekrem İmamoğlu. And it's for that reason that neither side will want to back down, Erin.
So finally, Andrew, there are also, interestingly enough, parallels between Erdogan and İmamoğlu. Can you walk us through some of those?
Yeah, that's right. They may represent or embody different visions of Turkish society, but there are some significant parallels, and those parallels certainly won't have been lost on President Erdogan. He'll be aware of them. Both men spent a part of their childhood in Trabzon province, which is on the Black Sea coast, and most notably, they have both served as mayor of Istanbul. President Erdogan actually made his name in Turkey's largest city in the 1990s. He famously said, "Whoever wins Istanbul wins Turkey." Now, those words may come back to haunt him. It will have stung him personally, very personally, President Erdogan, when he lost the city in the municipal elections in 2019 to the opposition, to Ekrem İmamoğlu. He lost again in 2024 to Ekrem. His party lost to Ekrem İmamoğlu in 2024 last year as well. Now, interestingly enough,
this is why I say Turkish elections are not fair, but they're free, because İmamoğlu is not under the control. It's not controlled opposition in the way that it would work in Russia, right? In Russia, a guy like İmamoğlu never, he doesn't get to have anything close to any semblance of power. Like, he doesn't have any proximity to power. Anyone that has proximity to power, anyone that is like even allowed to be in a position of power in a country like Russia is only allowed to be in that seat because Vladimir Putin let him get to that seat, right? Hold on 1 second. So the very fact that a popular opposition leader can win such an important race means that there's still some semblance of the democratic process still working in the country, as long as you can get away with not going to prison.
President Erdogan was also arrested in 1999 when he was mayor of Istanbul. On his release, that reinforced his popularity. It sealed his political rise. His party went on to win the general election in 2002, 3 years later, and he became prime minister a year after that in 2003. We are 3 years out from a presidential election officially in Turkey. Will the parallels continue or will they stop? That's the big unknown for now.
Now to the Middle East, and Israel strikes on what it says.
5 parties in the Russian Duma, plus some independents, more than in Sweden. Yeah, but all of the parties in the Russian Duma are also controlled opposition, is what I'm saying. Like, they are there because Vladimir Putin allows them to be there. That's the difference. It's not like a valid, viable coalition that is against the government. That's not a real thing. That was my point. Whereas in Turkey, the anti-government coalition is a valid one, is a real one. Like, there is real opposition. There's real popular opposition against the government. And it's always existed, as a matter of fact. It's existed for the past 20 years. It's always like a, not exactly like a 51-49 split, but pretty much. This last election was also close to that split in general. And Erdogan has obviously also had to take on MHP, the ultra-nationalist far-right party, into its governing coalition in an effort to maintain that majority support.
Are Hezbollah targets in Lebanon after several rockets were fired from Lebanon into Israel? ABC's Matt Rivers is there in Tel Aviv with the latest overnight. Good morning, Matt. And Israel is also sending more troops into Gaza.
That's right, Gio. Good morning to you. An intense 24 hours here across the region. Israelis starting their work week with sirens as a missile launched from Yemen set off alert systems.
Oh, man. They have valid security concerns again in southern Lebanon. That's crazy.
Across the country, the IDF intercepting it, though, before it arrived. This, as the IDF says, it is once again expanding the presence of ground troops in Gaza, ordering new evacuations as more and more troops retake parts of Gaza. People now forced to pick up and move once again with no real safe place to go. It is a broad operation that has moved a lot faster than many were expecting, and it has left a lot of people dead. The death toll, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, well over 600 just since Tuesday, including at least 180 children, says UNICEF. And today, health officials saying the death toll since the war began, now more than 50,000 people. And at the northern border with Israel, projectiles launched from southern Lebanon for the first time since a ceasefire brokered last year between Hezbollah and Israel, none doing any damage. Israel responding with massive airstrikes, killing at least 7 people. Hezbollah, though, denying that they fired the projectiles. An Israeli official also saying they're not sure which group is responsible, but the threat of escalation went certainly now higher after this ceasefire had largely held up for months.
Yeah, the whole region on edge. Matt Rivers for us. Thank you.
Israel's basically ripped up the ceasefire agreement that was signed, that was put forward by the Americans. That envisaged going forward to the second phase of the ceasefire, negotiating a permanent end to the war.
What have they been doing for the last 3 weeks?
Well, not negotiating.
Hold on.
We were meant to start a long time ago, and the Israeli team never went out.
Absolutely no.
The fact is that this government has never wanted to reach an end to the war, isn't it?
It's awesome. Just like lying is OP everywhere, baby. Not just in Turkey, not just in America, certainly in Israel as well. Lying is always and forever overpowered. Lying is OP, please nerf. Just the argument is always just nah. Like everybody knows this is the case, except for Americans, because Americans don't actually, get to hear real, truthful information about what's going on in Israel. People in Israel know this is the case. They know this is the case, and either they like it because they like what Netanyahu's doing, or they're further to the right than Netanyahu and they like that he's like ripping it up. Or they hate it and they protest against it because they're like, I don't have an issue with like bombing Gaza, but I want my family members to, be extracted. So very strange stuff in this day and age where I feel like 95% of what I talk about is just me constantly going, this is just objectively untrue. Like what this government official, insert government official from anywhere, okay? What this government official is saying is just undeniably incorrect. It's just a lie.
Washington to sit with Witkoff and with Trump to build a framework that will actually talk about what Israel needs are. And that's very important because at the end of the day, we have to bring back the security and the safety of our children.
Netanyahu has his own priorities. It looks as if the hostages are not the top of his priorities. And this is why things are not being done the way the majority of Israelis would have wanted it to be done.
Most of the hostage families are against resuming the war. Most of the Israeli public is against resuming the war. Why is your government doing it?
None of the so-called facts you just stated are correct. Some families are against. I don't judge the families, not at all.
The pussy families, they just, they are selfish. They want, they do not want the war against babies of terror to continue. So-called facts. None of your so-called facts are correct. No, this is not the UN drawing guy. This is a different guy.
We have been trying for the past 3 weeks to have a sort of negotiation with Hamas. It's understood that they're not going to release hostages without staying in Gaza. Staying in Gaza is not something we are willing to let them do. Therefore, there's no other way.
You killed 50,000 Palestinians in Gaza. You've destroyed much of the Gaza Strip. If that hasn't been enough to eliminate and destroy Hamas, what on earth makes you think it's possible to achieve militarily now?
Yeah, it's because you can't eliminate an idea. It's not Hamas. You want to eliminate the Palestinian people. You cannot eliminate an entire people's need for emancipation. That's the problem. It doesn't have to be Hamas. You can call it anything else. Okay? That guy's a sexual assaulter, by the way, and in a religious cult. I mean, yeah, the religious cult is the Likud party. A bibist, a Likudnik. Yeah, just common Likud member of the Knesset. Just Likud things. These guys are the center right in Israel, by the way. It's fantastic country. It's really cool. It's so funny also when I talk about this shit, people are like, wow, that's really anti-Semitic of you. It's like, dude, I say the exact same shit about American politics too. We have our own version of this shit happening in the United States of America as well. It's just like, it's identical because Israel is attached to the hip to the United States of America. It's basically, America's vestige.
There's an American plan of President Trump saying
Which
that,
has been widely rejected by Gazans and the Arab states.
I don't care. I care about
I don't care. I don't care. What are they going to do about it? We bomb? America says yes, bomb more. Okay. Haha, terror babies. Terror. Babies of terror. Babies of terror. We are killing them. We are killing the babies of terror dead. Yeah.
Israeli interests. I don't care about the interests of people in Gaza. I don't care the interests about people in London. I care about my family. I care about my people that were butchered, slaughtered, and raped here not too long ago.
It has been proven that only military pressure brings a good deal.
A year and a half of very intense war with a lot of civilian casualties in Gaza shows that it's not possible to militarily alone defeat Hamas.
A year and a half under the Biden administration that forced us to fight Hamas with one hand.
You know what's kind of crazy, by the way? I was having a conversation with someone. I was having a conversation with someone last night where I said the Palestinian literacy rate in the West Bank and Gaza is higher than the Israeli literacy rate. And he just would not believe me. I was like, look it up, man. Just Google it. Like, it's available. People can't believe it. Like, it's like one of my favorite facts to pull when talking to white supremacists, when debating or arguing with like a racist person, is to tell them that the highest educated population, like ethnic group in the United States of America, are Nigerians. They can't comprehend it, right? There's a material reason for it, but like they don't even want to scratch that. They don't even want to scratch the surface where they go, nah, that's not the case. Cause no way. It's true. People get so mad. People get so mad about that. And it's the same thing here. People don't want to believe it. They're like, I don't agree with you on the statement. The Palestinian literacy rate for adults across the board is 97.8, is 98%. The Israeli literacy rate is 92%. Okay? But when I have this conversation with someone where I tell them that, they're like, there's just no way. There's just no fucking way. I don't believe it. What leads you to believe that is, how can you object to a fact? This is so totally getting clipped out of context. I mean, it's the truth. What do you mean getting clipped out of context? I think broadly, one of the biggest issues nowadays is the fact that people just want to operate on vibes. They don't care. Okay? Yeah, it's because of the Haredim and isolated communities. Yes, that is part of the reason. Nice trivia, but what does that have to do with anything? The broader point that I'm making, listen to the point I'm making, which is that people, by and large, and educated people as well, like well-educated people, would rather confirm their biases than actually seek out the truth. And it is one of the most frustrating things that I encounter on a daily basis as a political commentator. It is incredibly frustrating. It is incredibly annoying. And I think it's alarming. Like, we have gotten worse at this. We've gotten worse at like critically examining things and having an overall healthy hunger for the truth. We don't have it anymore. It is really, really shitty. And perhaps the reason why, especially in the United States of America, why we have this issue is because of this. The Israeli literacy rate for adults is 92%. The Palestinian literacy rate for adults is 98%. The American literacy rate for adults is 79%.
But to feed them with the other, so I can tell you that now the war is going to be handled in a totally different way with the Trump administration, with the backing of America. Trump himself said numerous times that all hell should break on Gaza if they're not bringing back all hostages.
What does unleashing hell look like? I mean, you've already seen under, as you say, the Biden administration, daily death tolls of around 300-400 people a day.
You will see exactly what it means.
This terrorist organization, it's not just holding, I mean, if it still holds civilian power, within a couple of months, it can regroup another group and recruit more terrorists and form a more powerful army to fight us. So we can't just fight it from a military perspective, but also from a civilian point of view and dismantle their civilian power.
Do you think it is possible to militarily defeat Hamas, dismantle its civilian infrastructure then?
Absolutely.
You think that is possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, but how many more lives is that gonna take of ordinary Palestinians as well?
It can be with 0 lives if Hamas tomorrow take down their arm and surrender and bring back our hostages. 0. We're dealing with a terrorist organization, and as much as they're sacrificing and hate the Jews and want to completely obliterate us and our communities, they don't care for the lives of Palestinians either. That responsibility is on the hands of Hamas and Hamas only. If they
Are you comfortable with 400 people being killed a day, 500 people? Is that?
You don't want to hear the answer from her. The answer is yes. Actually, the answer is no. She's like, I want it to be 1,000 people killed a day. I think that we're not killing enough children. We are simply not killing enough children, enough terror babies.
Something that you're willing to countenance going forward to try and destroy Hamas?
This equivalence is absolutely absurd. You think I like that? You think?
Oh, you hate it. Oh, damn. She hates it, but she just knows it's just something that they gotta do, you know? Oh, how dare you? How dare you suggest that I enjoy the sights of baby murder? How dare you? I mean, it's really horrible that we have to do these things. We have to kill as many babies as possible. How dare you? I mean, you guys know the reason why I say this, by the way, the median age in 2020 in Gaza, I don't even know what the latest stats on this looks like, but the median age in 2020 in Gaza was 18, okay? 40% of the Gazan population is 14-year-olds or younger. They're killing children mostly. There's a reason why when you look at the stats, when you look at the actual stats of like who they're killing, whenever they bomb something, it's like mostly kids and women and the elderly. Close to 80%. It's it. Yeah, our greatest ally. Here it is. Israel recently committed the largest child massacre in its history. 200 children and 100 women were killed in one day. Altogether, about 400 civilians were killed, and the number of the dead is not yet final. These numbers are not reported in the Israeli media, and if they are, it's always minimized in an outrageous manner. The only time you hear these numbers get reported in Israeli media, as a matter of fact, that's also not true. What do you call it? Haaretz did report on it, like literally use that term. I think this might actually be a Haaretz article, as a matter of fact. But the only other channel that I saw in Israel report on the numbers was, I think it was like Channel 14 or something, like one of those fucking pro Benjamin Netanyahu channels that reported on it by saying 400 terrorists dead. That's the crazy double standard. That's the crazy hypocrisy of Israeli media, which is that Israeli media will literally use the Hamas-backed Palestinian Health Ministry numbers whenever they want to talk about how many people that they killed, but they'll just say all of the people that we killed were terrorists. Do they even have free press? No, they don't. Of course they don't. They have a military censor.
Think I wanted that? Israel wish it was the 6th of October now. We didn't want this war. We were forced into this war, not just by Hamas, by 7 entities from Iran, from Hezbollah, from Syria, from Iraq, from Yemen.
You're in favor of resuming the war or against it?
It's not.
My goat. There. Yay, look at that. Look who it is. Friend of the show. Friend of the freaking show. Dr. Ofer Kasif.
Oh, it's a genocide, and obviously I'm against it because I'm against any kind of war crime.
Your view is very much a tiny minority view amongst Jewish Israelis right now. Why are you losing the argument?
I don't think we're losing the argument. You know, in order to lose an argument, there must be a counter-argument. There's none. And you are right. It seems to be the majority, at least in the Knesset. I'm not so sure anymore about the streets. If you listen carefully to what I've been saying, you can see that there's no argument there. Only incitement, revenge, sentiments.
Remember when people were saying that your reporting was inaccurate, that Israel would never bomb Khan Yunis? Wait, what? Who said that my reporting was inaccurate? Of course. Israel blew up every hospital since the Al Ahli hospital bombing, the courtyard bombing that took place. Israel never actually gave one single piece of correct information on why it wasn't actually Israeli rockets that blew up the courtyard. Every single person that talked about the Al Ahli hospital bombing campaign and said that I was wrong to assume that Israel did it were objectively wrong. Israel blew up every fucking hospital. Israel took over the Turkish Gaza Friendship Hospital, which was the only cancer ward in Gaza. They overtook it. They used it as a military station. And yesterday they blew it up after they were done with it. And they said, well, no one can use the hospital anyway because we had overtaken it militarily. When I began my conversion process still going, the first and most important lesson I learned from diaspora, and especially people who lived in Israel, was that the government always lies. That's just the standard. Yeah. I mean, every government lies. Every government lies. Of course governments lie. The Chinese government lies. The American government lies. The Turkish government lies. Every government lies. The Israeli government lies all the time as well. Just simply calling that out is not anti-Semitic. I would say that the Israeli government, on the other hand, lies in the most egregious ways possible, in the most like easily identifiably wrong ways possible. That's the major difference, because there's no opposition in the Western world to the Israeli government's lies. They just never counter it. There are more critical reporting against the Israeli government in Israel than the United States of America. Our mainstream press is always running defense for Israel in ways that are more egregious than Israeli outlets. Israeli Zionist leftist media person Guy Meroz last night on Channel 14's talk show Hapatruatim. Now we need to focus on one thing only: to stop the war, to bring back the hostages, and then, as far as I'm concerned, then Netanyahu can destroy all of Gaza. Oh wow, I love that. Wonderful Israeli leftist here. No, the only Israeli leftists are the guys like Dr. Ofer Kasif, the Mezarvot people that are conscientious objectors. Dipshits like this, like liberal Zionists like this, also want death and destruction upon the entirety of the Palestinian people. They're not fucking real. That's why I say liberal Zionists are like saying you're a liberal fucking Nazi. Zionism is a Nazi ideology. Okay? It is identical to Nazi ideology. It's an exterminationist ideology. It's one that is born out of an ethno-religious supremacist settler colonial state. It is there to justify the existence of an ethno-religious supremacist settler colonial state that is currently an apartheid and also currently doing a genocide. Okay? This is why saying someone is like a liberal in Israel and still a Zionist is like saying someone is a fucking liberal Nazi. Isn't what you said all illegal under that anti-Semitism bill? Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Okay? I don't care if something is illegal. I'm always going to say the truth, regardless of whether or not there is suppression against saying the truth. The fuck are we doing here? You can try to hide the truth. You can try to shelter people from the truth. You can turn around and lie to the best of your ability. You can make it impossible. You can try to prosecute people for saying the truth. But you know what the reality is? The truth still remains. This is the truth. It does not matter. It doesn't matter what you do. You just simply cannot change the truth. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Netanyahu can destroy all of Gaza once we get the hostages out. Nice, man. Thank you. That's the wokest guy in Israel.
Hatred, fear, that's not an argument.
How do you think you deal with the issue of Hamas? Because a lot of Israelis are concerned about the prospect of them remaining in power in Gaza.
It is a big problem, and we should find a way to make sure that Hamas is not in power in Gaza. Right now, we should bring back the hostages.
Great idea. It's called ending the occupation. That's it. You end the occupation, and there is no more need for Hamas to exist or any sort of military formation that will be antagonistic and, dare I say, violent towards Israel. You end the occupation, you end the resistance to the occupation, because Hamas or any other militant formation only exists against the apartheid state that is doing an occupation on Palestinians, destroying Palestinian homes, destroying Palestinian lives. That's it. That's it.
Hostages, and it includes ending the war, and we must work with the international community and with all the partners that we have in order to find a way to oust Hamas from Gaza. Palestinians, Hamas. This must be done, but the priority now.
Like, this is it. You either kill every single Palestinian or forcibly ethnically displace them from the Gaza Strip and then also the West Bank, which is what these guys want at the end of the fucking day, by the way. Make no mistake. They all want this. Okay? Some people will say, oh, I don't want this. But like post-October 7, a lot of the liberal Zionists that kept talking about like how dangerous the West Bank settlers were and whatever are totally on board with permanent exterminationist policies. Because there's no other way. There is no other way to stop this. There's no other way to... You can't convince people to like a military occupation that kills them. This is just not going to happen. That's not true. What's not true? Most Israelis aren't like that, though. I don't know, man. That's not nuanced. Oh, my God. Consistently since October 7, I have gone back on this broadcast and looked at Israeli polling on the matter. Consistently since October 7, for the past 16 months, where the Israeli occupying force has completely destroyed the Gaza Strip, the Israeli population that is segmented by their own demographic terms, not mine, as Jewish or Arab, okay, Jew and non-Jew, Jewish Israelis, which comprise 75% of the Israeli population, want more death and destruction in Gaza, almost to like 90%. Okay? I agree with like 99% of your commentary on this, except, okay, I keep saying the average Israelis want Gaza burn. You keep saying the average Israelis want Gaza burn, and that's not true. Show me a poll that is inconsistent with that reality, and I will say I'm wrong. Israel in and of itself, regardless of the approval rating of the continued war, because here, this is the honest position, okay? Or not this is the honest position, sorry. The guy that we just saw, the liberal Zionist position, the most woke position, okay? The most woke, like, permissible position is we need to stop the war. We need to stop the war for now, which is not a genocide, it's just a war, to get every single hostage out. And then after that, you can burn it all to the ground if for all I care. That is the opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu within the confines of permissibility. There are real anti-Zionists in Israel. There are anti-Zionist Jews in Israel. I've basically interviewed all of them. Okay? I think the nuance here is that they just want Palestinians gone, not necessarily dead. Oh, sorry. Oh, I didn't understand. They just want to like force them out of the land, like ethnically displace them. Like they want to ethnically cleanse the land, but in a non-violent way, and not in a way where not in a way that that kills them all. So what happens when people don't want to leave? You keep saying average Israeli wants Gaza. Russian immigrants and Arabs and Africans are very much pro-Palestine here. Dog, what are you talking about? I already, what are you saying? I already mentioned that 25% of the Israeli population is non-Jewish, according to Israel's own demographics. 25%. Their attitude towards burning Gaza is very different than the Jewish Israeli population's overwhelming support for burning Gaza to the fucking ground or mass exterminating and ethnically cleansing Gaza. There was a recent poll that came out also saying adding Russian immigrants into that equation is really funny. I don't think that the Russian immigrants in Israel are not on board with what Israel is doing. That's crazy. Arabs and Africans, on the other hand, like the non-Jewish population in Israel, yes, they are not in support of they're not in support of what Israel is doing. This is true, but they're 25% of the population, and they're basically de facto second-class citizens. You know this already. You're an Israeli chatter that is in this community. You know, I know that like you can't get access to Al Jazeera anymore, but you still watch me, so you probably see it. Yeah. Oh, this is the thing that I was talking about. Yeah. 70% of Israelis support the second phase of the hostage ceasefire deal, right? 70% of the Israelis support the second phase of the hostage ceasefire deal. Having said that, which would require Israel to pull out, okay, which would require the Israeli troops to pull out of Gaza. When asked directly about even Trump's plan of mass displacement of Palestinians, Israeli Jews specifically have the same exact attitude. The reason why they want to continue with the pullout is because they want all the hostages out. That's it. The reason why they want to continue the ceasefire is because they want to pull the hostages out. Can you please give a definition of anti-Zionism in the context of not asking for the removal of people in Israel? Yes, I believe that currently, I look at things honestly, I believe that currently there is already one singular state. It's Israel. It is an apartheid state. Israel dominates the Gaza Strip and is doing a genocide on the Gaza Strip. Israel also has Bantustans in the West Bank. Israel has illegally occupied the West Bank since 1967, militarily. There's a shift happening here since Trump is in office. Right-wingers here are even turning on Netanyahu. I haven't seen that. But my point is that there is already one state, and the two-state solution has been a lie that right-wing Israeli governments and even centrist Israeli governments have basically been using to continue settling the West Bank, which is what they did. I think it was like 80,000 people living in East Jerusalem mostly in the 90s. After the so-called peace process, that number shot up in 2025 to 750,000. And not just in East Jerusalem, but East Jerusalem and just West Bank proper. 750,000 Jews live in the West Bank. 750,000 settlers live on occupied Palestinian territory. And that happened over the peace process, the so-called peace process, as every single government kept kicking the can down the line over and over again. So the notion of a two-state solution would require 750,000 settlers to be removed. That is never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You have to be realistic. So the anti-Zionist position that I have as a one-stater is to implement by force, if necessary, a singular, solitary, secular state. And this position is not necessarily popular amongst Palestinians, and it's not necessarily popular amongst Israelis either. But it is my position. You can have a disagreement with that all you want. With or without the right to return? Yes, of course, with the right to return. With the right to return, with reparations, with a Truth and Reconciliation Committee that needs to be implemented to prosecute war criminals. And yes, even people who have engaged in war crimes on the Palestinian side as well. Okay? Now, of course, when resisting against an apartheid regime, the crimes that you commit at the behest of resisting against an apartheid regime are going to be viewed differently than being one of the fucking war crimes, the war criminals on the side of the apartheid regime. But having said that, yes, that is what needs to happen. Now, I personally think that is also incredibly difficult to ever implement. But there is no other way out of this, in my opinion. There's just no other way out of this. So if you ask me what I think should be done, that's what I believe. Truth and reconciliation, reparations for all Palestinians, that have had their land and homes stolen from them, a right to return for all Palestinians, and a singular secular state. The thing that obviously stops this from happening is the fear that Israelis have, Israeli society has, specifically Israeli Jews by and large, that this would mean that there are more Palestinians there and more non-Jews there than Jewish citizens. And therefore, they will democratically do the same thing that Israel's been doing to the Palestinians for the past 76 years. They will forcibly repress and oppress and destroy and kill and ethnically cleanse all Jews in the region. That has not ever happened throughout history, with one exception, which was the Haitian Revolution. That has never happened throughout history. That did not happen in the abolition of slavery, which is like probably the closest comparison that you can present in terms of the 76 years of occupation. I'm going to come off as a flat earther, but I don't think the polls are accurate on how Israelis feel. They're just libs who are slow as going, more and more broke. Shit's expensive, man. I can't even afford the top of the hours. Okay, well, don't worry. I don't run top of the hour ad breaks any longer anyway. But yeah, I mean, the Haitians didn't enslave the white people. They killed them. Yes, even with Haiti, that's an oversimplification. I agree. But I'm saying that like mass violence in the aftermath of a revolution historically has only happened in one instance, one successful slave revolt, which was the Haitian Revolution. The Nat Turner Rebellion took place in the United States of America. But in the aftermath of the abolition of slavery, what happened? Were there roaming gangs of newly freed black men and women that were massacring and enslaving white people? No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen in Algeria. No, it did not happen in Algeria. That's not a comparison either. It did not happen in Algeria. People voluntarily left Algeria because they did not want to fucking live in Algeria. And it didn't happen in apartheid South Africa, and it didn't happen in Ireland either. But the reason why I use the abolition of slavery is because that is one of the closest systematized versions of harm that is like that's genocidal, close to a genocide, or in some ways might even be considered worse, right? That's the reason why I use that as an example. What usually ends up happening in this process is that like the same violent, rabid settler groups will basically continue doing clan-style violence upon the Palestinians. And they need to be dealt with through the criminal justice system. That's it. That is the most likely outcome here.
It's not empowering Gaza. Right now, we should bring back the hostages, and it includes ending the war, and we must work within...
Couldn't these settlers just fall under the leadership of a new Palestinian state? No, dude. They would never that would never happen. That is what is supposed to happen right now. Like the Palestinian position right now, the Hamas position on this and the Palestinian resistance position on this is 1967 boundaries, okay? Which is not objectionable. That is appropriate. That's the basis of the two-state solution. How will you get to the 1967 boundaries? That means 750,000 Israeli Jews, some of the most rabid, some of the most right-wing, some of the most insane members of Israeli society that are violent expansionists, exterminationists, that basically are the Jewish KKK, okay? Those guys are going to leave? No, of course not. And Israel weaponizes them anyway. While the broader Israeli society pre-October 7 might have looked at these settlers as welfare queens who are just like living off government dollars as they suffer. You know, liberal Israeli society hates the settlers because they're uneducated, filthy, whatever the fuck they say in Israel, okay? You know, look to Ethan Klein's earlier vlogs from Israel to find out more about what liberal Zionists and Israeli society thought about fucking West Bank settlers. He was, way more aggressive in the way that he talked about West Bank settlers than I have been, okay? Those guys are not fucking leaving, and the Israeli government knows that they're not going to leave. The Israeli government has sent them there. The Israeli government uses them to create valid security concerns for our citizens. That's the whole point.
National community and with all the partners that we have in order to find a way to oust Hamas from Gaza. Palestinians, Hamas. This must be done, but the priority now must be hostages first.
We're not going to leave our sons and grandchildren to deal with their sons and grandchildren. We're going to end this now.
How? How are you going to end it?
You're going to conquer Gaza.
You're not going.
We're going to conquer Gaza. and we're going to work together with our American allies in starting the Trump plan for
ethnic cleansing. But a lot of people would say.
A lot of people would say, I don't care about what other people would say. I care about what we say. I care about our interests.
I know that today, in Western culture, people don't want to win. They think that if they'll pay the bully, he will leave us alone. Well, I have news for you. This bully is not going to leave us alone. He's here, and he's here to stay, and he will do everything he can to destroy Israel. We will not allow that to happen.
A lot of people would say Israel's the bully. They're the greater force, and they're the ones.
Only people with a broken moral compass can say that Israel is the bully after the massacre of October 7th.
The fighting in Gaza is having a devastating side effect on some Palestinian communities in the West Bank. Activists say dozens of new Israeli outposts have sprung up across the territory since the war in Gaza began. As CNN's Nada Bashir reports, many Palestinians now believe they have only one option left: to move.
For decades, Palestinian shepherds have faced threats and violence at the hands of Israeli settlers. Dozens of rural farms like this one have already been abandoned as a result. But such violence is only increasing. This is just one of several incidents documented by Israeli NGO B'Tselem over recent months. The organization says dozens of settlers descended on the occupied West Bank.
Yeah, this is now we're moving on to the other side. The Israeli apartheid and what it looks like to live under the Israeli apartheid in the West Bank. When you look at Gaza, that's what a genocide looks like. When you look at the West Bank, that's what pogroms under an apartheid looks like. This is a systematized version of violence that is outsourced to the most rabid fucking psychopaths that you have ever seen. It's as though the American government is working side by side with the Klan in the Reconstruction to dominate the newly freed black men and women.
Village of El Mania in mid-February, attacking homes, farming equipment, and even residents.
Yeah, Palestinians leave as Israeli outposts spring up is such a disgusting way to approach the subject matter. No, Palestinians are being forcibly removed from their land illegally by rabid terrorists who are backed by the government. That's what's going on. They're not leaving. They're not voluntarily leaving. They are experiencing pogroms, okay? They're experiencing ethnic cleansing. I don't have any sympathy for anyone that doesn't recognize this. The funny thing is, when I went with political activists to the West Bank, they denied our entry of 300 people. While settlers killed Palestinians there, we aren't allowed to come and see. Yes. And of course, the Israeli, it's not just that either. Israel settlers from margins of the mainstream, the Listening Post. This is, for the record, why I appreciate the activists that still, regardless of whatever their fucking opinion is on Israel, the Israeli Jewish activists that put their bodies in front of this process, I still think are important, okay? Like, if they're saving one Palestinian family, that's still good. You just got to work with who you have. You got to work with the tools at your disposal.
While Israeli police forces demolished the outpost established in the village by settlers, B'Tselem says the outpost was later rebuilt that same day. Dozens of Palestinian herding communities have been impacted by the spread of outposts like this one, essentially undefined settlements, usually made up of small structures or caravans. Israeli anti-settlement watchdogs Peace Now and Kerem Navot say at least 49 outposts were established in the months following the October 7th attacks, an increase of nearly 50% since the beginning of the war in Gaza. As of last December, the groups estimate that herding outposts covered almost 14% of the occupied West Bank. That's an area of land roughly twice the size of Gaza. And that's in addition to approximately 150 officially recognized settlements that have already been...
I really care about Palestine, and I hope you cover it a lot, but every time I click on your channel, it's so off and on. It's important, and there's a lot of other important things, too. Maybe I'm just unlucky when I click here. Yes, because I don't just cover the Israeli government's actions in Palestine. I'm live for 8 fucking hours a day. If you think that this is the only thing that I cover, you're wrong.
Bank. Both outposts and settlements are considered illegal under international law. Satellite imagery analysed by CNN shows how rapidly herding outposts have spread. as well as the gradual development of new roads, connecting the outpost to established settlements. And in
What are outposts? Tents? No, outposts are the ways in which settlers expand into Palestinian territory. Here's how it works. You go and you mark a house, oftentimes the Star of David, okay? That means that that house that has Palestinian people living in it needs to be evacuated immediately. Otherwise, they will die. And sometimes they do die. They go in, they burn the house down with Molotov cocktails, they beat the shit out of people, they oftentimes have guns, they shoot at the houses, they shoot at the Palestinians that are living in their own homes in the West Bank. Then the Israeli occupying force comes in. The Israeli occupying force doesn't come in to stop the settlers. The Israeli occupying force, as a matter of fact, comes in and militarily defends the settlements. Okay? In the aftermath of that process, once they've successfully ethnically cleansed the Palestinians from that land, they build outposts. Outposts is a militarized version of a home. The reason for why they build these outposts is to segment off different areas of Palestinian land from one another. Because once you build those outposts, then the Israeli government comes in and builds roads that Palestinians can't drive on. Remember, this is their own land, internationally recognized as occupied Palestinian territory, illegally occupied by the Israeli government. So they build compounds that cut across Palestinian land deliberately, and then they build roads across Palestinian land deliberately, and then they don't fucking let the Palestinians drive on those roads. All of this is done in an effort to trap Palestinians into Bantustans, a similar concept that existed in South Africa as well during the South African apartheid. Every step of the process, the Israeli government militarily protects the settlers engaging in this act of terrorism. Because the Israeli government itself is a terrorist government. The Israeli government itself is a fascist government. Outposts are built to envelope Palestinian lands in the same way it was done to Gaza, hence the name the Gaza envelope. Yes, the Gaza envelope is the kibbutzim that are the first line of defense surrounding the Gaza Strip.
In some cases, cutting Palestinians off from the land that they depend on. In the northern village of El Farisiya, the local farming community has now been almost entirely depopulated. Back in February, we met the Daraghma family, at the time still desperately clinging on to their land. These hills are full of areas for our animals to feed, but now there are settlers over here, over there, and another one over there. We can't access these areas, Ahmed says. The settlers
I truly don't know what to say to my coworker who says B'Tselem and the other human rights watch organizations are anti-Semitic. Is your coworker Jewish even? Like, Jewish or not, doesn't really matter. They're fucking delusional and they're a fascist. But it is pretty funny because I hear this a lot from people who aren't even Jewish, where they just like think that they know more about Judaism than fucking actual Jews. They know more about Israel than Israelis. They know more about Jews than Jews themselves. They feel so confident in saying, well, you're not a real Jew. There's nothing funnier than entertaining the hubris of ultra-Zionist Gentiles who think that they literally are more Jewish than Jewish people, you know, because they're more pro-Israel than Jewish people. Yes, he's an Israeli who works for the dog. He works at Elbit. Like, wait, what? Yeah, no shit. And if he's a coworker, you work there too. You should probably fucking quit your job if you work there. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, no shit. He says B'Tselem is fucking anti-Semitic and Human Rights Watch is anti-Semitic. He's like, hey man, can you please do something about my coworker who is supporting the Nazi government and keeps and is a part of a weapons manufacturing facilities. He works at Mercedes. My coworker that works at Mercedes in the Nazi government is saying that the German communist movement comprised of Gentile Germans that are resisting against the Nazi government are actually anti-Volk. They're anti-Nazi, and it's fucked up. Yeah, no shit, dude. You're at the baby killing factory directly for the baby killing government. You know, Elbit Systems is a Israeli weapons manufacturer.
Settlers come to scare our sheep and frighten our children. We've had to stop going up on the hills with our sheep, fearing they will come after us. Ahmed's family says they have lived here for generations. The land, not only their home, but also their livelihood. We've always lived here, Hussein says. Our whole lives are here. Where else can we go? Since filming, members of the Daragma family told CNN they were left with no choice but to abandon their homes. Acts of violence by settlers from nearby outposts simply too much to bear. Activists say outposts like those around the village of Al Farisiya are established with the purpose of laying claim to Palestinian land and pressuring Palestinian communities to flee. Through threats, physical violence, and direct attacks on resources, including livestock and farming equipment, often with the protection from both the military and the state. CNN has reached out to the Israeli government about allegations of its support for illegal outposts, but has not received a response. The Israeli military told CNN that it condemns violence in any form and that police are tasked with handling any Israeli violations of the law. When asked about new roads we saw being developed around another nearby village, the IDF said the land had been seized for, quote, operational needs, adding that the route is intended for use by security forces and that it has been developed in accordance with military orders.
It's important to understand that this project, this herding outpost campaign, or this project is a national project, it's a state project. This is not a project which is initiated by individuals. It's a project which the state of Israel is standing behind it, it's budgeting, is facilitating, is protecting it.
The Ministry of Settlements, for example, has budgeted for outposts which it calls young settlements, previously saying funds were carried out in accordance with all laws. But the displacement of Palestinian herding communities is just one part of a deepening crisis in the West Bank. The UN says more than 40,000 Palestinians have been forced from their homes since February by an expanding Israeli military operation, with Israel's defense minister calling on the military to prevent the return of those displaced, stoking fears around the potential for a full annexation of the territory and crushing hopes for a pathway to a viable Palestinian state. Nada Bashir, CNN, in the occupied West Bank.
To begin this morning, the legal battle between the Trump administration and Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia University graduate student and pro-Palestinian activist it intends to deport. A few days ago, Aaron Moriarty talked with his wife, who's expecting the couple's first child next month.
You know, my husband was taken away from me in the middle of the night. It was one of the most terrifying times of my life. I don't think I've ever experienced anything scarier than that.
Noor Abdullah, a 28-year-old dentist born and raised in Michigan, has suddenly found herself in the center of a storm she never saw coming. She and her husband, 30-year-old Mahmoud Khalil, had been living in Columbia University housing while he completed his master's degree, and they awaited the birth of their first child.
I was so excited, like we were setting everything up for like the nursery and his clothes, and Mahmoud was so excited too. Like,
turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around.
Okay, let's not. Okay.
That all changed on the evening of March 8th when federal agents arrived at their door.
And he was like, "Are you Mahmoud Khalil?" Mahmoud said yes, and the man said, "We're with the police, you have to come with us."
What's going through your mind at that point?
I was scared. I was terrified. Yeah, they just like handcuffed him and took him. I don't know what to do.
Abdullah used her phone to document what happened next.
At this point, Mahmoud was like, "Go take the keys, grab my green card." He thought maybe like if he shows the green card, you know, we'll be fine.
Did you think that if you showed the fact that your husband was a legal resident with a green card, that he'd be okay?
Mm-hmm. Because I was like, this is just a misunderstanding. They're going to take him away. They're going to take him to 26 Federal Plaza, see that he has a green card. He'll be home in a few hours. Excuse me. They're not talking to me. I don't know. Excuse me, the lawyer would like to speak to somebody. Oh my God, they're literally running away from me.
She has not seen her husband since. Khalil, who has been in an immigration detention center in Louisiana for 2 weeks, is one of many international students that the Trump administration says it plans to deport for their alleged actions in student protests on college campuses. The unrest began in the fall of 2023 following the October 7th Hamas terror attack on Israel. When Israel retaliated with deadly bombings in Gaza, students across the country erupted in protest.
Jesus Christ.
At Columbia University in New York, demonstrations against the war, while mostly peaceful, also led to the occupation and vandalizing of buildings. And what many Jewish students described as a threatening anti-Semitic atmosphere on campus.
We know now that there are students in our class that simply hate us because we're Jewish.
Noor Abdullah says her husband...
I fucking hate this narrative so much, dude. The American government is so unimaginably dumb, and the media is so fucking stupid that, like, the hysterics of students on campus, like the hysterical perspective of a pro-Israel Jewish student on Columbia campus is more important than the First Amendment. It's more important than being able to say, hey, don't do a fucking genocide, please. Don't associate with a country that is doing a genocide. It is like, it's hysteria. There's nothing to it other than fucking hysteria. Dudes who are like, no, my feelings are hurt. I'm scared. Like, what the fuck are you saying? You're scared. Like, these student-led protests are also led by Jewish students. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, real terrorism is when you actually have to listen to the fucking hysterical opinion of conservative students on campus. That's what real terrorism is. When have conservative students not talked about how fearful they are on college campuses, man? They always talked about it. They're like, oh, libtards run the campuses. We hate it. They always want to have fucking safe spaces and shit. Okay.
Khalil, a Palestinian born in Syria, became the lead negotiator between protesters and the university.
This encampment is a minor inconvenience compared to the generational shaping events taking place now in Gaza.
People really trusted him to be good in that role because he's so calm and good under pressure.
The president wants the...
But in the days following Khalil's arrest, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt painted a quite different picture.
This is an individual who organized group protests that not only disrupted college campus classes and harassed Jewish American students and made them feel unsafe on their own college campus, but also distributed pro-Hamas propaganda.
You also know that the press secretary said that your husband circulated pro-Hamas flyers. Did he?
That's not true.
Is Mahmoud pro-Hamas?
These are accusations that the Trump administration keeps pushing on him.
But what do you say to those?
I think it's ridiculous. It's disgusting that that's what they're resorting to, that's the tactic that they're using to make him look like this person that he's not. Literally, it's so simple. He just does not want his people to be murdered and killed. He doesn't want to see little kids' limbs being blown off, you know?
The university led us to this situation, unfortunately, through bringing the police here.
Mahmoud Khalil has not been formally charged with any crimes, and the government has showed no evidence he provided material support to terrorist groups. Instead, Khalil's been arrested and detained under the Immigration Act that allows the Secretary of State to deport any person whose presence or activities would, quote, have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the U.S.
If you are in this country to promote Hamas, to promote terrorist organizations, to participate in vandalism, to participate in acts of rebellion and riots on campus, we never would have let you in if we had known that. If you violate the terms of your visitation, you are going to leave.
In fact, Khalil was never charged with vandalism on campus. CBS News asked the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security for comment. We did not receive a response. This is incredibly rare, what happened to Khalil, isn't it?
There are many things about this that I think are sort of without precedent or with very little precedent.
I was really shocked.
Lindsay Nash, an associate professor at Cardozo School of Law in Manhattan, teaches and practices immigration law.
They haven't said that he's committed a crime that makes him deportable. They haven't said he's committed any kind of crime at all.
What's more, says Nash, the provision that the government relies on was once determined to be too vague and unconstitutional. The federal judge who made that ruling, Judge Mary Ann Barry, President Trump's sister, who died in 2023. Her decision was ultimately overturned on procedural grounds.
So this particular provision that Secretary of State Rubio is leaning on is really untested.
I think it is. I think we'll have to see in court.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's crazy. As a Jew, personally, I'm worried that they're stifling free speech in the name of anti-Semitism, and people will see that and start resenting Jewish people, and then actual anti-Semitism will start happening. Yeah, it's already happening. That's literally happening already. Dude, all of this conflation between Israel and Judaism is teaching people that all this baby murder is something that Jews love, and that the American government will take any action against people who dare criticize this baby murder to protect the Jewish people in this country. They keep conflating it. It's a dangerous conflation. It's a false conflation. And yes, it is already creating a shit ton of anti-Semitism in this country. And just like the only pro-labor sentiment on mainstream news was coming from the likes of Tucker Carlson, who is a WASP nationalist, if the only permissible and popular anti-Israel statements are coming from right-wingers, many of which who are anti-Semitic, like openly, and if that's the only game in town, people are going to say, I'm anti-Israel because I'm anti-Semitic. The Candace Owenses and the Fresh and Fits and the Sneakos and the Dan Bilzerians of the world, and even the Tucker Carlsons of the world, are the most visible anti-Israel advocates in this country right now. Collectively, they are presented as the sea of anti-Israel sentiment. And liberals, on the other hand, are focusing their efforts on people like myself, people like Mahmoud Khalil, or refusing to defend people like Mahmoud Khalil. I'd argue you're up there with what? You'd argue that I'm up there with like anti-Semitic statements? Or you'd argue that I'm up there in terms of like being a visible anti-Zionist in this country. I am up there. But my reach, my popularity, no, I understand what you meant. You meant like in terms of popularity. My reach and popularity is nothing. It pales in comparison to Candace Owens. Candace Owens every single day covers another anti-Semitic conspiracy on her broadcast. Like I see it. I see the clips on my Twitter timeline because Twitter is just dominated by Nazis. Every other day, there's a new thing where she's like, yep, it's the Jews again, doing Jewish shit. That is the extent of her commentary. It is reactionary, and it is an incredibly easy to understand message. And it's a message that goes along with what Jake Tapper is saying too. Because remember, dual loyalty being an anti-Semitic trope is true. And yet, pro-Israel people constantly invoke the dual loyalty trope, but in a woke manner. So if the right-wingers are saying dual loyalty in a wokely manner as well, by the way, right-wingers who are pro-Israel are saying all Jews love Israel. This is like, shut the fuck up. You can't say anything about it. And liberals are saying dual loyalty in the exact same way. And then the anti-Semitic people are saying dual loyalty. Then the overwhelming media narrative on this issue is dual loyalty. Jews love Israel. Jews love the baby murder. It's their favorite fucking thing. That is literally what we are teaching this next generation. A generation that for the first time ever, perhaps, has actually recognized that what Israel's doing is wrong. Now, you either address that by going, yeah, what Israel's doing is wrong, but it has nothing to do with Judaism, or you think that you can defend Israel's actions with the old school method of trying to suppress any sort of criticism against Israel. And if you've done this for 70 fucking years, if you've been able to successfully defend Israel for 70 plus years by saying, oh, dude, you're anti-Semitic. Shut the fuck up. Why are you being anti-Semitic? What are you, a Nazi? Shut the fuck up. If you have been able to successfully do that for the past 70 years, but you can't do that anymore, but you're still trying to use that, all you're going to do is educate people on the false notion that Israel is for the Jews, by the Jews, and every Jew loves Israel, and they care about Israel more than anything else. Very dangerous prospect here. That's where we're at. That is straight up where we're at. Bro, Gen Z is crazy. The media does call all of Gen Z anti-Semites, even though not all of us are. It's bad because there are Gen Z that fall for anti-Semitic conspiracy, but muddying the waters is so bad. I know. And you know what's crazy, though? There is a shit ton of anti-Semitic Gen Zers out there. I'm sorry. This is just the fucking truth. I mean, I see it. I see that shit nonstop. Americans are not very intelligent. They literally think like if you call COVID the Wuhan flu, that's somehow magically going to solve the problem, right? Like it's the same shit. They think, oh, if we are anti-Semitic, then, you know, maybe we'll be able to solve the problem. We're doing activism by being anti-Semitic. Like, I'll give you some common metas that even I didn't know. I think one number is 271, the new dog whistles. 271 is the claim that only 271,000 Jews were killed in the Holocaust. It's a Holocaust revisionist conspiracy. That's one. Another one is my family, her family or his family was promised this 5,000 years ago. Now that in and of itself is not inherently anti-Semitic. That's just like a joke about how the false conflation of Israel with Judaism has been brought about. Why the fuck are there more dog whistles? Dude, Gen Z has different dog whistles than the generations prior. That's what I'm saying. They'll say, oh, 5,000 years ago, this person was promised this. It's not inherently an anti-Semitic statement, but it is applied towards all Jews in an anti-Semitic way sometimes. Even though that joke is inherently about like the lie that the Israeli government tells about how, you know, this is the promised land for Jews. It has to be Jewish controlled. Israel is the promised land. Oh, what? Just trying to understand. I promise I'm not trying to sound ignorant. So for this growing movement against Jews, because they're being labeled as baby killers, wouldn't that require the previously pro-Israel people to become anti-Israel, anti-Jew? No, not anti-Jew. Yes. The conflation between Israel and Judaism must stop. Like instantly. It should have stopped yesterday. One, because it's false, and two, because it is creating a fuck ton of anti-Semitic tendencies. I think the average Jewish person who supports Israel calling everyone who even mentions the conflict in a light that doesn't positively reflect Israel a Jew hater could be why Gen Z is like that. I don't agree and can look at someone who says that to me and think they're just misinformed and brainwashed. But the kids just invented a new dog whistle on the spot. I think it's the first generation where you're really seeing the backlash with. Yes, I know. I agree. That is literally what I'm saying. That's my point. If you think that constantly conflating Israel with Judaism and thinking that that is a defense mechanism to stop conversation entirely from taking place by saying, oh, you're being anti-Semitic, you must hate Jews. If you hate Israel, you hate Jews. When you say that, people are going to be like, okay, I do hate Israel. I guess I hate Jews. That's how it works. And in the short term, this kind of anti-Semitism actually benefits Israel's project anyway. Not dissimilar to the bombing campaigns that the Mossad did in Iraq, blowing up synagogues in Iraq with the hopes of forcing the Jews in Iraq to escape to Israel. They did that shit because they wanted Jews to feel less safe in other countries so that they would have to go to Israel because Israel has to constantly grow. Israel must be a Jewish ethno-state. But I think the craziest shit is when the Trump administration says like, shalom, Mahmoud. Like when the American government, the Trump administration, the right-wing government is saying shalom, Mahmoud. This is why, you know, like I can't stop thinking about that. I can't stop thinking about how insane it is that the American government's official account said shalom, Mahmoud, after fucking ripping away Mahmoud Khalil in the dead of the night away from his American citizen wife who's 8 months pregnant for the crime of fucking speaking out against Israel's genocide. Yeah, it's like, dude, this is literally, yeah, it's the White House Zog posting on Maine. Exactly. Like, this is everything. This is everything that the Nazis have been fucking saying. And Zog is Zionist occupied government. It's a fucking 4chan Nazi term. Okay? Like, this is the type of shit that David Duke would never have dreamed would be happening in broad daylight. You know what I mean? This is the type of shit that like Nicholas Fuentes and David Dukes of the world have been saying is going on. And the American government is like posting about it. I mean, yeah, it's way older than 4chan. Fair.
Courts will have a lot to consider.
Yesterday we had a very long session with the university negotiators.
So who is Mahmoud Khalil? Insider or conciliator? Legal experts say this case is about a lot more than a single man.
The idea that Mahmoud Khalil, one grad student at Columbia, is imperiling the foreign policy of the United States is absurd.
Connor Fitzpatrick is a senior attorney with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, or FIRE. He believes the true reason that Khalil and other students are being targeted is because of their polarizing viewpoints.
Freedom of expression is hard. It requires listening to, tolerating, and even defending views that you or I might find completely repugnant, that make our blood boil. But the alternative is so much more dangerous.
The students were violently attacked by public safety without any warnings.
But Khalil is the face of campus protests. He's been accused of helping to create an environment of anti-Semitism. I think to a lot of Americans, why shouldn't he be deported?
So the First Amendment and principles of free speech are designed to protect.
I don't think this attitude is as popular as this fucking dumbass is presenting it as.
Protect the unpopular speakers. There is no such thing as an un-American viewpoint in the eyes of the First Amendment. Sure, if the administration could come forth with new evidence that they haven't provided so far, showing that Mr. Khalil engaged in vandalism or engaged in conduct that would rise to the level of harassment, we would be having a very, very different conversation.
If the government establishes that he is a leader or a representative of a terrorist organization or advances or espouses their cause, that is grounds for stripping him of his green card and removing him.
Ilya Shapiro is director of constitutional studies at the Manhattan Institute.
Oh my God. The fucking right wing. Dude, the Manhattan Institute is where Christopher Rufo's from, by the way. Jewish consultant wearing a fucking release the hostages pin at the neo-Nazi Manhattan Institute think tank saying, yeah, you should be deported if you fucking hurt the feelings of Israel is psychotic. This is why I always say, I think a lot of American Zionists who are Jewish themselves or American Zionists who aren't anti-Semitic themselves, who, you know, care about the safety of Jews in this country, do not understand what they are advocating for and how badly this will explode in their fucking faces. You are making some scary fucking allegiances, dude. This allegiance will be short-lived. Did your undocumented food slave make that for you? Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. He even put it in a container.
Institute, a conservative think tank. Shapiro, who has called for a crackdown on pro-Palestinian.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the in-campus official trailer. I asked if I could see the whole thing. I can't watch the whole thing yet, but it's going to be released, and I will be watching it. Also, I want to say my bad to Macklemore. I know I've made a lot of jokes about Macklemore, but honestly, he's fucking awesome. He's been funding a whole bunch of these documentaries and things like that. I mean, he's great. Macklemore is awesome. I'm sorry I said he was corny in the past. I'm here to right those wrongs, okay? He's the man. He's dope.
And protesters says this case is not about speech, but what he says are illegal actions.
Nobody is being prosecuted for their speech. It's not that American citizens can speak freely, but non-citizens can't. That's not the issue. But with these immigration regulations, if you are a supporter of, if you're organizing together with others to conspiring to do certain things, those are actions. And it's those actions that put you askance of the immigration law.
If he wasn't charged with those crimes at that time, and he hasn't been accused of them now. Should he be deported simply because people think he did it?
You don't have to be charged, let alone convicted of a crime, to be deported.
Federal court and immigration judges will have the final word. While the case plays out in court, Khalil's attorneys have asked for bail. Noor Abdullah fears he'll miss the birth of their first child. Meanwhile, Erasmus...
Like, that dude literally is also getting sent to a concentration camp. Like, I don't know why he thinks he's gonna be fine. Sure, maybe I'll be there before him, but he's going there too. I don't know why the fuck he's so comfy being like, nah, it's not gonna happen this time. This time it's different. The fascist government won't actually ever turn against the Jews eventually, who are a minuscule percentage of the fucking population. There would be never any material reason as to why the fascist government would do that, both historically and certainly now.
Rasmussen poll released this past Thursday finds 45% of likely U.S. voters believe he should be deported.
I know, I'm sorry. There.
Okay. His wife, a U.S. citizen, has now taken on a role she never wanted, answering questions she feels are often unfair.
Yes, they will put black and brown people first. They will put anti-Zionist Jews in there. But eventually they'll put all Jews in there. They'll be like, hey, they got a lot of money. We want it. We need to seize their assets. To the camps with you. The broad, popular, generational momentum against Israel cannot be led by anti-Semites. Because if it is, then everybody's fucked. Is repression of Jews common in fascist nations, or was that a Hitler-Nazi thing? Dog, repression of Jews has more historical basis than nation states. Repression of Jews existed before fucking nations did. Angloids love repressing Jews and doing pogroms to Jews and blaming everything on the Jews. It's their favorite activity. It's the most European thing you can do. It's the most white supremacist thing you can do. It was a favorite pastime. It's kind of funny because in Kingdom Come, there's also a little bit of that as well, because there's the Jewish quarters in Gutenberg, and the Jews that escaped, they are also in favor of King Wenceslas, because there was a pogrom that happened in Prague when the usurper king took over, and that they had to escape to Gutenberg. Yeah, Europeans love shitting on the Romani people, and they love shitting on the Jews historically.
Trying to change public perception.
It gets offensive when you're constantly having to say, I'm not this, I'm not this. It kind of brought back a lot of things that I experienced growing up in the United States. In New York the other day, me and my husband were walking, and someone said, called me a terrorist. So it's like constantly throughout my whole life, and I think most Muslims in this country can relate to that. It doesn't matter what I say, that's what they think of me, and that's what they're gonna think of me.
All right, I'm not gonna do the Israel Settlers video, but here, let's watch the encampment's official trailer. And then we'll move to some more fun shit.
We're here to discuss the little Gazas that have risen up on campuses across America.
There is a movement to radicalize young people.
Can you believe they are chanting about the Intifada in New York City?
I really believe they are brainwashed.
Intifada.
There was a very concerted effort by the media to portray things a certain way and refuse to discuss Gaza. Colombia is materially invested in the genocide in Gaza. We don't want our money to go towards Palestinian death.
I was born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp. The university was cracking down on Palestinian activism on campus.
It's completely farcical to imply that in any way, Jewish people were being persecuted.
I have never felt more proud to be Jewish than when I was pushing our university to divest from genocide.
They would just criminalize anyone who would participate in a protest. That was the moment where students were like, we need to do something more. The university would say oh, you're overestimating your power. I remember telling them there are 60 universities setting up encampments across the United States.
By the way, they use Marxism's footage from the encampments. They didn't ask me, but I guess we didn't have good enough footage.
We got Yale holding it down right now
all right.
What you willing to risk? What you willing to give? What if you were in Gaza? What if those were your kids?
In '68, the students at Columbia took over the campus, mainly in protest of the war in Vietnam. Columbia talks about how it was okay then, but not okay now.
Bravery is very contagious. We kind of watched Columbia in awe, and we knew we were next.
It's sick. Macklemore played a role in producing this, by the way. No, the song is no longer corny. It's actually sick. It's actually dope.
Would you?
We're going to Donald Harris in a second to talk about Taiwan and war with China, and then I'll do this too. Let's welcome Donald Harris into our homes.
U.S. forces defend the island.
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
They don't pay us money for the protection, you know?
I'm standing on a giant map at CNA, getting ready to play a game about war.
Taiwan, a delicate piece, looks a little more fragile.
Today I'll be assuming the role of the leader of China.
I am presumably the leader of the PRC right now. Okay, amazing.
And Sam, the creator of our channel Search Party, is playing the leader of the United States. I, China, have just invaded Taiwan, and I have troops there. It's been 90 days. And now Sam has to decide whether to respond and how. But wait, what's going on here? We're surrounded by experts in all kinds of fields having to do with war. And we're at an organization that does research and analysis for the US military. But we're rolling.
It's shocking how Donald was able to film this while nutting so hard. Like nutting harder than he's ever nutted. It's crazy that he was able to keep it in his pants the whole time.
Dice. We're playing on a giant game board.
Why do we need to play games about war?
War games are a very cheap way to get better at decisions than war.
Militaries spend millions of dollars on designing and playing war games. And I came here to understand why. Here's the US military gaming out World War II battles before they happened. Here's the Vietnam War, the Iraq War, and lately they've been...
Okay, that's like one W and then the rest is L's. So maybe war games are not the best, you know?
Been gaming out what might happen if China invades Taiwan. That's what we're doing today. Now, this has always struck me as odd, that we play games for war. So I asked CNA if I could come do one for myself to see what I could learn. So let's see how this face-off goes, using this giant map. And in the process, we'll learn why militaries play games. Okay, so here's how it works. The game designers have created a scenario where I, China, have invaded Taiwan.
For 90 days, we've had boots on the ground in Taiwan.
And all these blocks represent the weapons, the vessels, and troops that I have.
This is so dumb. If China has already militarily occupied Taiwan for 90 days, what the fuck is the American government supposed to do? Nothing. Let them have it at that point then. It's so stupid. That means it's over. Unless you just wipe out the fucking Taiwanese population, you know? What do you mean? The entire point is supposed to be defense before China actively swarms Taiwan and takes it over, if there was any appetite for that at all. Like, this doesn't make any sense. If at any point China has militarily successfully overtaken Taiwan and has occupied it for 90 days, then it's over. You know what I mean? Like, shouldn't the real war games be before that happens?
In my theater of war. The game designers have given both Sam and me specific objectives that reflect real world objectives in a conflict like this. And that's about it. It's now on us to make decisions as if we were the leaders of our respective sides and see how the other side reacts. While Sam is consulting with his advisors on the first move, I start thinking about the countries in this region. How do I use this moment to undermine confidence in the US? To make the US look less trustworthy? Right away, I'm feeling like I have the upper hand here. I've captured Taiwan, and now all I need to do is keep the US military and its allies away.
I want to make it really costly for the US, where any calculation they have to make comes with a very high cost to American citizens.
We've just begun this game, and I'm already surprised at how into this I'm getting. I can feel Sam's anger at me that I invaded Taiwan, my worry that he'll respond and escalate this conflict, so I start working on a plan to make it difficult and costly for him to respond, hopefully keeping him out of here. We head to the map to start looking at options. I toy around with creating a blockade around the island.
We have the advantage of proximity and speed to set up a wall that says this is going to be costly.
But this is where I start thinking about the US's presence in the region, especially in Japan and Korea.
There's a huge presence here Is this a vulnerability? I think the scariest thing is just the movement across the strait is probably where they're going to focus in. And it's like, can I stop that? So I'm trying to think of these contingencies, what they might do.
Okay, I'm about to take my turn, but I want to pause to thank today's sponsor, Incogni, for sponsoring today's video. All of our personal information is really valuable, and companies buy and sell it so that they can target us for a variety of things. Advertisements, insurance premiums. There's an entire economy of data brokers that use your name and your address and your phone number and your email and your demographics and your browsing habits to try to make money. It's the major reason why robocalls and junk mail are so pervasive. But it also leaves us vulnerable to identity theft. Luckily, we are protected by the law. You have a right to privacy. You can request to be taken off these lists. The problem is there are hundreds of these lists, and it's not easy to request to be taken off all of them. Incogni does this for you. You sign up for Incogni, you give them permission to act on your behalf to go make requests to take you off these lists. And they do that. They do the hard work of restoring your privacy. And my favorite part is you get to check in on it. They've got this dashboard. So to date, they've taken me off of 657 lists. And they've successfully taken me off of 533 of those lists. And they estimate that they've saved me almost 400 hours. They're giving 60% off to all of you if you use the link in my description. It's incogni.com/Johnny Hirsch. You get 60% off the yearly plan. Thanks Incogni for sponsoring today's video. I know all of you are excited to get back to the giant map to see what move I make in the South China Sea. Let's do it. Now, I've studied the geopolitics of this region extensively, but already I feel myself looking at this region in a whole new way. So my plan is to beef up my naval presence around Taiwan, while also moving more of my troops onto the island, hoping that Sam doesn't attack. Great, I think we have a plan here, and I guess I'll wait to see what Blue does. Over on Team Blue, Sam seems to be contemplating punishing me, not with a direct strike, but by targeting my natural resources.
I think oil is probably a move.
Okay, we've done our planning. It's time for us to both make our moves.
So both of you have 2 operations prioritized, ready to go?
If America tried to invade Taiwan after China had taken it over for 90 days militarily, it would probably be the dumbest fucking idea of all time for the entire planet. I feel like that might be like a bridge too far for even the biggest war hawks in America. This isn't to say that like, oh, the Taiwanese people would welcome the Chinese as liberators or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm simply talking about like state versus state, like what they have to lose in this process. I mean, look at Ukraine. Now think about Taiwan versus China, which the American government, even at this point, considers to be a part of China, even though they offer defensive capabilities to Taiwan and want to use Taiwan as a weapon to wield against China at a moment's notice. But literally look at Ukraine. First of all, I don't even know if this would be an invasion. I think it would just be the American bombardment campaign of Taiwan. Like they would just kill a shit ton of people in Taiwan. It would look like the Korea War. They would just wipe out parts of Taiwan straight up, just kill as many people as possible. I don't know how you get out of that situation and you like successfully create an independent Taiwan.
What we are interested in is consolidating our control over this island and signaling to the rest of the region and to anyone else who might want to get involved that we're really serious about defending. And so we are going to move some of these naval assets to surround the island.
As I make my move, the surreal experience of feeling like the leader of China continues to grow.
We are not here to kick anyone out or to invade other places. We are simply here to realize our role in the region as the leader of the region, and this is our way.
Bro is enjoying that a little too much, okay? Goofy ass.
Way of demonstrating that, and we hope it does not escalate into anything more than it needs to.
Okay, here comes the response from the U.S.
China didn't act.
Hi, Hasanabi. Just want to know you're all fucking losers. Thumbs up, Israel. Good luck on your continued lack of success at achieving any of your goals. Hey, man, I hate to do this to you, but the country whose flag you are flying in the chat in a positive manner is understandably seen as one of the worst countries on the planet. That was always the case in the global south. but it's certainly now even the case in Western Europe. So no matter how much you feel like you're fighting the good fight, that flag is only associated with genocide, because that's the only thing that people know Israel, the only thing that people associate Israel with now. Good luck, though. I think being an annoying, rapacious scumbag while simultaneously trying to defend Israel by attacking all of the people who are critical of Israel will certainly win people back on to your side. Any day now, people are just going to be like, no, I love Israel, actually. Good luck, you little Nazi. Have fun with your little Nazi state that is a fucking pariah of the world now. You are accomplishing nothing. We are killing terror babies.
Act of aggression.
Bro, that's true. US aid is cut, and now Johnny's invading Taiwan. Oh my God. It took literally a week. He's showing US aid the way. Okay, he's like, listen, bitch, you don't keep that steady flow of US aid dollars coming my way, Voice of America style. I will fucking invade Taiwan.
We are basically going to show them the ramifications of that. We would like to choke their natural resources from the Indian Ocean.
The US military begins stopping ships that are bringing oil to China. This is their punishment for my invasion of Taiwan. And this is when I realize that what matters here isn't just how I respond to this, but what narrative I tell the rest of the world that gets them on my side. Storytelling is so important in a war like this.
There's no international legal basis for this behavior. The U.S. is a lawless, hypocritical state that bullies its...
Facts. Oh my God, this is my favorite Donald Harris video so far. He's speaking facts. He is. U.S. is a lawless terrorist nation. What the fuck is it doing in our territorial waters? Is a great way for Donald Harris to defend on the propaganda front. Respect.
Adversaries.
What we're trying to do here is to show them that they've made an error and that...
Yeah, this motherfucker's pissed that the USAID funding got cut, dude.
We have multiple ways to punish them.
I'm kind of riffing here, but soon I find my narrative and I start to hit it hard.
We are messaging to the world that this kind of behavior of bullying our commercial ships and our energy resources is threatening the whole global economy.
I decide to move some Navy ships over to this important choke point in the global economy near the Suez Canal, Djibouti, where China has a base, from which I can monitor the flow of goods and resources to my region.
Yeah, there's some other critical allies in that region as well that could be helpful to Chinese interests, I think. Something to consider. Djibouti.
We will move a ship over to Djibouti here. It's not intervening in any way, it's just here in case things get a little more real.
I'm particularly interested in what do the countries...
Yeah, bro became Yemeni in the second turn. Exactly. He's like, you know, we got our wonderful allies here in the Ansar Allah movement. We've given them hydrogen fuel capabilities. They now have drones that can go thousands of miles. Okay. We will be using those drones. We will be using the Ansar Allah drones. They will be stepping on the American and Israeli flags over and over again as they send drones.
Also in the South China Sea and in East Asia feel. They're worried that China is expansionist and they much prefer the U.S. to continue to...
America saying, we worry that China is expansionist is so funny. Like, dude, why are you there? Like... Why are you anywhere that's so far away from America on the other side of the planet in the ass cheek of China? And you're like, man, China is so expansionist. We have to counter them.
Be the one policing free trade in this area, then have China suddenly play that role.
We roll the dice to determine how other countries in the region are reacting to all of this. The tie means that we adopt the assumption that the neighboring countries are split. The game adjudicator, who's kind of the referee, helps move things along in a realistic way.
There's an active debate in the Southeast Asia region over who is the right guarantor of their safety.
No, there isn't. Most people in the region are perfectly willing to do cooperative security agreements with China in the South China Sea, with one notable exception, and that is Pinoy Gang. That's it. That's the one holdout. Pinoy Gang is the only holdout in the region. That's it. The Swagapinos are the only ones who are like, nah, we can't be. We're not fucking with China. Same way the EU is willing to cooperate with Russia instead of the US. I mean, no, not in the same way at all. I think there's a difference between the inherently antagonistic relationship the European Union countries have had with Russia versus the cooperative security agreements that like have already been established with the exception of the Philippines.
Tensions are rising here as we go back to our advisors to plot the next move. And while we do that, let me briefly get you up to speed on why.
I also don't think that if the Philippines were used as an unsinkable aircraft carrier for the United States of America, that they wouldn't also be voluntarily welcoming Chinese development projects into the country with open arms. They would as well.
Why we're doing this in the first place. Turns out that playing games about war has been around for a while. As long as there has been war and solid maps.
Bro, I don't care about the war games, man. History of war games is boring. Get back to how you're gonna dominate the region,
Military leaders have wanted to try to simulate how a war could play out before it happens.
People have been playing games about war for thousands of years.
Ferdinand Marcos was deposed in a revolution and he fled to the United States. His assets were kept in U.S. banks and he holds the Guinness World Record for biggest theft against the government. His son is singing America's tune to get the riches back. Bong bong.
It's not about a game. It's about having an opportunity to think about things outside of actually having to do it.
But it wasn't until the early 1800s that wargaming became more formalized, a serious tool for war training and planning. Real assumptions, real constraints, real game mechanics that mimicked at least some aspects of real war. These Prussian dudes are not playing Risk. They're getting ready for war. There's a lot going on here, but the main point in these games is to present decision makers with scenarios that force them to grapple with the hard decisions of war. World War II saw extensive gaming, so much so that one admiral later said that they had gamed out so many different scenarios of how the conflict with Japan could go that, quote, nothing that happened during the war was a surprise. Absolutely nothing, except the kamikaze tactics towards the end of the war.
Yeah, nothing was a surprise. We just firebombed Japan and inevitably dropped not one but two nukes. The only thing that was a surprise was how fucking crazy we were.
We had not visualized those. War games are practice for war. With time, these war games turned into huge productions involving hundreds or even thousands of participants. They moved on to fancy computer simulations that made it feel more and more real, more and more precise. Some of the games were there to help plan for what might happen in war, but many other games were there to help hone the skills of different officers.
Bro, I've just realized gamers must be lobotomized. It was always gamers that were responsible for all the death and destruction. I'm seeing it now, right in front of me. It was always gamers. Gamers are responsible for all the bloodshed. Oh my God.
To train them. Back on the giant map, the conflict is taking a new turn. Sam has sent a secret operation of American soldiers to covertly sabotage the bomber planes that I had sent to Djibouti. This will require a lot more maintenance and reduce their usefulness in the region. He's also moving a bunch of military assets into this region. I don't like it.
We are stepping up our Navy military assets, but out of range of China's defenses.
Rocket forces?
Yes.
So, we have total control of Taiwan. We've built this big naval blockade around the island. They are sabotaging our natural resources coming from the Middle East. And we, China, are using this as a way to amplify to the world that the US is a lawless bully who is sabotaging us when we're just doing what we're entitled to do. So it's looking pretty good for the PRC today and not looking great for the US.
I'm still feeling really good about all of this. That is, until Sam makes his next move.
Looks like the US is going to escalate here by taking some of their ships through the Taiwan Strait. Floating through the Taiwan Strait to assert that this is international water, they have the right to do this. Gonna come through the strait and show us that they're really serious about defending Taiwan. This is a very risky escalatory move.
Sam's naval ships will be accompanied by Japanese and Filipino ships, a show of solidarity with regional allies.
Take him out. Take him out, Jonald. Show them what's what.
This is not good. I go from feeling great to worried on how I'm going to respond.
We can't let them do this because it completely shatters our whole narrative and our messaging.
Dongfeng missiles out the wazoo. Dongfeng missiles into oblivion.
This FAN operation is coming from Japan. It is escorting humanitarian aid to Taiwan. It's been 120 days. They're starving.
Wait, what? Why would they? No, that's funny. I mean, I like it. He's saying like, China is starving out Taiwan. Why would they do that? Another thumbnail has hit Hasanabi. What is this? Raiding the South China Sea for Chairman Xi. Okay, dude, stop.
Humanitarian aid. That's it.
I think we have to draw the red line and say, if you don't turn back, we are going to sink something. We're not bluffing, and I want to show that. If your humanitarian ship is coming escorted by military vessels, that will be an aggressive move that we will respond to.
We don't recognize your zone around Taiwan, so we are doing that anyway.
We continue our same message that anyone coming into this water for any reason with military vessels is considered with hostile intent and will be treated as such.
Yeah, stop being a pussy. Start bombing.
And we're not bluffing.
Our next moment of action is you're approaching this line of folks.
We bring out a line of ships to physically stop the movement.
I mean, we'll continue to try and avoid, but we're navigating past.
Okay. I'm sure there's somebody on a Chinese vessel that's got a very good video of a maritime militia ship getting rammed to stern.
This is a hostile act and very aggressive, and we are making plans to respond. And we ask you to turn around immediately, or you will face the consequences of this invasive act that we have very clearly signaled to you is not okay. Sam is trying to call my bluff, and I really don't want it to work. I can't let this happen. I have to respond, or else all my threats will lose their credibility. And if you can't tell, I'm now fully immersed in being the leader of China.
This is so stupid.
Have tried to avoid this very moment, but you have given us no choice.
So I decide to use a series of missiles to target one of the Filipino ships.
Oh no, fucking Pinoy gang. Of course, they're the ones that get cooked.
We are firing at
a junior coalition partner, always the first to go.
One vessel attempting to sink it as a way to demonstrate our earnestness. So one way or another, we overwhelm your defenses and we get some missiles through. We sink the Filipino ship.
Because of the chaotic nature of kinetic war, we roll some dice to establish whether or not, in this scuffle, one of these ships fires back and shoots down one of my aircraft. And it turns out they do.
So U.S. takes down one of our jets.
A Filipino ship has been sunk or is sinking. And the U.S. SAG has fired back.
There's a big flaming ship that is clearly in the process of sinking in the middle of the strait. Lots of cameras going onto the national newscasts showing these sinking ships.
A shooting war has begun. What happens next?
By the way, these are both nuclear armed nations, which I feel like we're just not talking about. These are both nuclear armed nations that also have, not only do they have nukes, but also are directly tied to one another with trade. Trade that, if stopped, would certainly cripple America. Like, probably, it would cripple America significantly worse than China. So I don't know how, like, this is entirely established on a faulty premise.
Sam acts quickly and retaliates, targeting one of my surface action groups, which looks something like this, sitting here in the Indian Ocean. Things are escalating.
Our ESG in the Indian Ocean sinks one of their SAGs.
Whoa.
We're about to have an engagement unprecedented in modern history.
Yeah. The question becomes, what results from this, right? Is there enough U.S. force to be able to defeat this SAG?
If you're trying to do it, absolutely.
My heart is actually beating faster. At this point, we're a couple hours into this, and I find myself having forgotten that I am indeed not Xi Jinping, and that I am in an office building in Arlington, Virginia, playing a game.
I don't want to escalate.
CIA.
Here, I think doing some sort of superficial damage kind of to this ESG would be kind of a reasonable way to just say, like, hey, we will,
Yeah, it's funny that he said this is the most realistic way to plan for war and then started the game in the most unrealistic way. China having invaded Taiwan 90 days ago. Yeah, that's why I said like in the beginning that this would be the stupidest way to conduct this, because if China has already invaded Taiwan, it's no longer Taiwan, it's Chinese Taipei for 90 days. It would be the dumbest thing on the planet. Like, America's opportunity is to try and stop China from successfully overtaking Taiwan. Any point after that fact is just like the most over it's ever been. That's why I said I don't even think America would do. I mean, it's just one scenario, I understand, but it's like the worst one for America. And I'm sure that because this is a John Old Harris video, America's going to end up winning most likely, but
We will be here if you attack us.
And this is where I really start to understand the value of all of this. This kind of role-playing against a real human opponent in a real-world scenario forces you into a totally different mental experience than reading about it, learning about it, watching movies about it. Totally different, which is the whole point. And what I've shown you here is actually just the highlights of what was nearly a full...
After 90 days, there's nothing left of the Taiwanese government. They're all re-educated now. No, it's not even that. There are enough people in Taiwanese leadership that would, one, instantly fucking wave the flag, wave the PRC flag. And then those would be the leaders that China says are now the leaders in fucking, those are the regional leaders of Chinese Taipei. Yeah, they would... Probably like KMT. I don't think that they would be. I don't think there would be any need for re-education.
Of playing out this.
The KMT wouldn't surrender. I don't think they wouldn't. I don't think they would surrender. I think they would be. I think they would be the unification party, and they'd be like, yeah, we're unifying with the mainland.
Scenario. We went into way more detail on every one of these moves, forcing us to think about details and calculations which really couldn't have come in any other way.
There's so much learning that takes place on both sides. The red team player.
The current KMT party, the modern day KMT party right now, is the pro-unification party in Taiwan. There are a lot of studies conducted on the Taiwanese attitude towards reunification. And the number one overwhelming majority obviously wants independence. But if independence is like, the overwhelming majority across the board want the current system to exist in the way that it does without rocking the boat. Okay? That's the overwhelming attitude. There's also obviously full independence as I would say, the most popular position. Virtually everyone in Taiwan wants to maintain the status quo. But if that's not the option, if the status quo is broken, okay, then yes, they want independence. The majority want independence. The KMT party's position is the status quo party position, or status quo position. So if there was an opportunity for independence, yes, the Taiwanese population would want independence from China. But the overwhelming majority position at this moment is to continue along with the status quo.
Players learn about blue capabilities. The blue team players learn about red capabilities. I want them to put themselves in the headspace of the commanding officer, the person who would be making as many of those decisions as possible, and think about what information they would have, think about what information they wouldn't have.
The game is a framing mechanism. Each game that we design is targeting a different series of cognitive processes to try to help the players walk through how would I solve this problem or how would I approach this issue.
Okay, so would
the U.S. try to take over if they somehow got independence from China? I mean, if the independence movement would be entirely funded and supported by the United States, and is entirely funded and supported by the United States. Can you go into more detail of why U.S. intervention after 90 days would be stupid? Yeah, because the most opportune moment for intervention would be before a full-blown invasion. If a full-blown invasion started and it was successful and it was for 90 full days, then the only way to liberate Taiwan would be to kill Taiwanese people. Given Taiwan's proximity to mainland China, and also given the way that Taiwan sits as an island, it would be insane to do boots on the ground. I don't think they would do that. I think they would just fucking straight up try to fund insurgency groups to the best of their ability, because they already have pre-existing relations, obviously. then China would sink the whole island instead of giving them independence? No, they would not do that. I don't think they would do that. That's also insane.
Play games about war to prepare for war. Some simple and physical that can be done in a day, some digital, built off software that take weeks. But what do we do with the results?
What a war game allows you to do is a very flexible approach to try to explore that and then set up things to go and analyze and things to go and test and do.
Back in the 1960s, the US military extensively gamed out what would happen if they joined the war in Vietnam. When they tested gradually bombing North Vietnam with air attacks, the conflict only escalated in the game, creating a prolonged conflict. In the game, the American public came out in opposition of this attack, and the communists gained support in the North. This all happened before the invasion, but the results were largely ignored, the assumptions questioned. And yet, when we ended up going into Vietnam, quote, the outcome of this game was eerily prophetic of what actually happened. In 1999, the US military gamed out what it would look like to overthrow Saddam Hussein. They gamed out assassination, an internal coup. They gamed out what it would look like to handle infighting in the Iraqi army, and even installing their own government. Every one of these resulted in some kind of chaos, ethnic conflict.
Yeah, good thing that didn't happen. Oh wait, literally all of that happened. And Iraq was launched into permanent chaos.
Military infighting, the breakup of the country, mass violence, rival forces bidding for power, concluding that this
is so funny because, like, you know, they predicted all this and then did it anyway, and then all of that happened.
Would create, quote, a period of widespread bloodshed and might lead to the creation of a less than desirable post-Saddam state. But a few years later, there was a new president in the White House, and he was leading a country that had just been attacked by terrorists based in Afghanistan. But George Bush and the people around him were still obsessed with overthrowing Saddam Hussein, a country away in Iraq. So they designed the most expensive game in US history, a war game that simulated a war with a made-up country. But the Secretary of Defense wanted a report on how the learnings from this game could be applied to a potential invasion of Iraq. The US side immediately lost the game when the red team used a bunch of low-tech tactics to get ahead, sinking an American ship. The adjudicator stopped the game to reset it, refloating the ship and saying that such low-tech tactics would never really work against the US in a real war.
He's talking about the famous, this is the famous Millennium Incident, right? And this was Iran. The fictional nation was Iran that they're talking about, not Iraq. The Millennium Challenge, where the American government got fucking rinsed and then turned around and were like, oh, we have to save scum and change the rules.
New constraints were put on the red team, and critics say that these new constraints effectively guaranteed that the US would win. Now, the adjudicators could have had other reasonings for resetting the game like this, but in the end, this
it was to protect the feelings of empire.
Represented yet another forced validation that the administration was seeking to invade Iraq. So war games can be very informative if those designing and playing those games are committed to learning from the game and not trying to get the outcome that they want. Something John Kirby emphasized to me a while back when we were...
I don't know why he said this was about Iraq. This was... What the fuck? He interviewed John Kirby? Bro! Okay, dude. I mean... Every day, I am more and more sure that this man is CIA.
We're setting up for an interview in the White House.
Only as good as the input.
Yeah.
And the honest way in which you execute them.
Back here on the game board, things continue to escalate, but we're out of time for today. Spending the day playing Xi Jinping taught me a lot, a unique form of learning that helped me understand the geopolitics of the Pacific in a new way. So I'm walking away from this with a much deeper understanding of why militaries put so much effort into making these games. I just got a little taste of it. Me and Sam are by no means good at this, but I can see how this serves as practice, as a way of testing assumptions, thinking in new ways, something that is so important for something that is so high stakes. War is chaotic. It's emotional. It's reliant on humans making human decisions, and it's impossible to realistically practice. And as always, when we talk about war, there's a deep paradox here, one that military thinkers have been repeating for centuries, that if you want peace, you must prepare for war.
So war is a common factor of history, and it's better to think about.
Wait, that's it? I'm sorry. So he literally talked about how the U.S. war games and the Millennium Incident and the Millennium Challenge ended up with America losing, and therefore they fucking changed the dynamic and cheated. They save scummed to ensure a victory. And then we don't even watch the rest of the video of like what happens when China and America duke it out. Dog, you're really not going to show us? You're really not going to show us who won?
In 2002, a Marine general led a fictional version of Iran in a war game against the United States and won. The U.S. military tapped
What is this? We Are the Mighty? I don't know what this is.
Lieutenant General Paul Van Riper to lead the Red opposing forces in the most expensive military exercise in history. He was put in command of an inferior Middle Eastern-inspired military, and his mission was to go against the full might of the American armed forces. In the first 2 days, he sank an entire carrier battle group. The exercise was called Millennium Challenge 2002. It was designed by the Joint Forces Command over the course of 2 years, and it had 13,500 participants, numerous live and simulated training sites, and was supposed to pit an Iran-like Middle Eastern country against the US military, which would be fielding advanced technology it didn't even plan to implement until 5 years later. The war game would begin with a forced entry exercise that included the 82nd Airborne and the 1st Marine Division. When the Blue Forces issued a surrender ultimatum, Van Riper, commanding the Red Forces, turned them down. Since the Bush Doctrine of the period included preemptive strikes against perceived enemies, Van Riper knew the Blue Forces would be coming for him, and they did. But the 3-star general didn't spend 41 years in the Marine Corps being timid. As soon as the US Navy was beyond the point of no return, he hit him.
What's happening with the chat? I'm not paying attention. What, are they saying it's AI again or something? What? They're being misogynistic? Oh. They're being pervs? Wait, why are they being... What are you being pervy about? You see one woman on screen and you fucking can't handle yourselves? Y'all are disgusting, dude.
And he hit him hard. Missiles from land-based units, civilian boats, and...
Says you? Wait, what? Says me? You are too? Wait, what? What did I say? I didn't say anything. The fuck?
Low-flying planes tore through the fleet as explosives-laden speedboats decimated the Navy using suicide tactics. His signal to initiate the attack was a coded message sent from the minarets of mosques at the call to prayer. In under 10 minutes, the whole thing was over, and Lieutenant General Paul Van Riper was victorious. So, how did 19 ships and some 20,000 US troops end up at the bottom of the Persian Gulf? It started with the OPFOR leadership. Van Riper was...
If the Iraq War wasn't an absolute failure, I genuinely think neocons had their sights on Iran next. Like, what country is flanked by both Iraq and Afghanistan, and naval war games have always been set in Iran? America's low-key obsessed. Yes. That is the dream. That's not even a secret. That is the wet dream of neocons. That's why back in the day, people used to say it's like neocon is like an anti-Semitic slur, because that's also Israel's wet dream. But yes, neocons have openly said that they want to dismantle Iran piece by piece, no matter what the cost. That's like the whole Iraq war wasn't a failure. We got their oil and took out a strong Saddam. Iran is next as well. Yeah, no, definitely. Iraq war definitely wasn't a fucking failure, dude. You're so right. 12,000 dead Americans in the process. Look at the United States of America now. When I think of a successful hegemonic power, I think of the United States of America in 2025. That's, 1 million dead Iraqis, 12,000 dead American service members, and America is more destabilized than ever before. $6 trillion of expenditure. Yeah. Here, let me think of some other incredible successes real quick. Vietnam, Afghanistan, basically everything that America has done post World War II is a resounding success. If Iraq was a success,
was the epitome of the salty Marine Corps general officer. He was a 41-year veteran, both enlisted and commissioned, serving everywhere from Vietnam to Desert Storm. Van Riper attended the Marine Corps Amphibious Warfare School, the College of Naval Command and Staff, Army War College, and the Army's Airborne and Ranger schools. That is not the ribbon rack of a timid individual. In fact, the 3-star general had been retired for some 5 years by the time he led the Red Forces of Millennium Challenge. He was an old-school Marine capable of some old-school tactics, and he insisted that technology technology cannot replace human intuition and the study of basic nature.
Yeah, because he's right. Because America's gotten their shit pushed in over and over again for this reason. All right, let's watch this Bad Empanada video.
We will discuss the most pressing issue of our time. Should Hassan Piker go to Gaza or not?
Damn, this guy's good.